And good morning. It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I am Glenn. He is Griffin. It's still another dreary day in Baltimore, but it certainly isn't for Orioles fans. Pleasant AF after the Orioles finish off a 6-1 week. A sweep of the Cincinnati Reds. The bats even came to life yesterday. Anthony Santander piling on. I was talking about this with Josh on Twitter last night. I had decided that despite how good Dean Kramer was, no matter what, as long as Adley Rutschman did anything at all with the bases loaded when he came up late, he was going to have to be man of the match because I'm sick of the fact that we've gotten this deep into the season and he's with all due respect to Gunnar Henderson, he's the MVP of the team and he's somehow still not on the board. And so, of course, he struck out. Of course. And so the streak continues. And look, it's difficult because there's a part of me that just says, just give it to him anyway. But then I'm like, I'm ignoring the fact that Dean Kramer threw 6 shutout innings.
No hit.
Gave up 1 hit. I can't ignore that. It required somebody doing something amazing, and I get that Santander ended up hitting the grand slam, but the game was already out of reach at that point. The answer was Dean Kramer. It's just it all ends up being the starting pitching from the week. All 3 starting pitchers were the 3 men of the match. And I get it, they're all justifiable. I could have made it Cano on Saturday night, I could have, because that was awesome. But it was John Means giving you 7 shutout innings in his first start back. You gotta ignore that.
None of the starting pitchers gave up any runs.
It's unbelievable. It was an unbelievable weekend. But I do think I'm going to have to make the standard more difficult for the starting pitchers moving forward because I just don't want this exercise to be
the starting pitchers
nothing but
that
starting.
Good,
I understand. I just what's the point of just doing why have a board if it's always just going to be the starting pitcher?
Well, it's not always the starting pitcher. Colton Cowser's up there. Ryan Mountcastle.
Yeah, it's been one non-starting
Mullins,
pitcher in the
Gunnar,
last.
Westberg.
James
McCann's up there.
Hasn't been Mullins a lot. that's been tough. But indeed, all 3 starting pitchers were the man of the match from the weekend. And so we'll put them up in order: Cole Irvin, John Means, and Dean Kramer. Now, I realize that the Reds offensively have not been as good as we expected them to be coming into the season. Why is it that the mic doesn't work as well over here as it does over there? What is that about?
It just doesn't sound as loud when you're closer to the wall.
It's weird, right? Now, if I move back here, we're all good. But if I lean into the wall, I don't know. Whatever.
Maybe it's just when you're the torque in your neck.
Is that what it is?
Your voice, maybe.
Is that what it is?
I don't know.
That's very weird. Anyway,
I guess, yeah.
I realize the Reds are not quite the offensive juggernaut that we thought they would be, without Matt McLain. But it's not like they're missing everybody. That's still Elly De La Cruz, and that's still Jonathan India, and that's still Jake Fraley, and that's still talented hitters in that lineup. And it wasn't just that they got mowed down. They got mowed down efficiently. There were very few pitches thrown by the Orioles starters in order to dominate them this weekend. It was wild, Jack. And frankly, on Friday and Saturday, it was a good thing it was because the Orioles' bats were not terribly productive for the first 2 games of the series, 5 total runs. And then, obviously they came to life yesterday starting in the first inning with that home run from Jordan Westberg. But just a weird weekend in Cincinnati, and it goes the Orioles' way. It was a great week all around, but the story is the starting pitching. And that's really the story in general that we're kind of feeling at the moment is remember the day that they acquired Corbin Burns. By the way, we need another star for Cole Irvin. Did you?
Okay.
Yeah, we got to get it's consistency. And we need another star for Dean Kramer. We'll get to that. We need a lot of stars over here. The feeling that we had the day the Orioles acquired Corbin Burns was, oh, my God, this might be Jim Palmer, Dave McNally, Mike Cuellar, and Pat Dobson all over again. And then, of course, it was followed up by the bad news of Kyle Bradish's injury, and we were panicked about that. And then that was followed up by John Means, and we're like, oh, no. Maybe they only acquired Burns because they thought they might not have some of these guys. The Orioles get these two cats back this week, and they both look phenomenal. I've never seen a rotation like this in my life in Baltimore. In my life. They have too much. That's the story of the Orioles, right? Is they have too much. They have too many left-handed hitters. They have too much starting pitching. It's incredible. I don't know what to do with myself. What to do with my hands? They have so much.
Cole Irvin, the second player to earn 3 stars. Who would have thought that?
Yeah, I'm starting to think the man of the match might not be the best representation. 3 up, 3 down maybe is the best representation. Although Cole Irvin's been great. He's been great. There's no way around it. His last 3 starts have been absolutely outstanding. Now,
I think it's just they've been that good.
Yes, they have been that good. The starting pitching is the story at the moment. At the moment, it's the story. And I'm not worried about the offense. They had a couple of down days. They're fine. They won games anyway.
I'm confident they can score 11 runs, every now and then when.
Yes, I'm confident that they can do what's necessary in order to. I'm not worried about the offense by any stretch of the imagination. The only thing I'm worried about, and it's the thing that I'll write about coming up today at PressBoxOnline.com, is closer. That's it. It's the only worry that I have. Obviously, it's a nice first world problem to have where the team goes 6-1 this week. Their starting pitchers pitch to a sub .4 ERA, and I'm going to have something that's going to be a perceived negative to write about. But we're all feeling it. We did the first hour of the radio show about it yesterday. We're all feeling the same thing. Craig Kimbrell gets that week off, and you send him out there Friday night, and he looks dominant. And you find yourself saying, all right, all's good. All's good. There's a weird blip on the radar, but all's good. And then you turn around and you try to pitch him again the next night. And I've seen so much criticism of Brand. Well, why would you try to have him pitch back-to-back? He had thrown 16 pitches all week. How limited can you make him? You guys, some of you just don't like Brandon Hyde. And I don't know if it's just because he's the manager or whatever it is. You can't define why you don't like him. You just don't like Brandon Hyde. I'll never understand it. Guy throws 16 pitches in a week. He looks dominant, utterly dominant the night before. If the problem is his usage, then it's a bigger problem. Because if you can't be available the next night when you've thrown 16 pitches all week, that can't be your closer. Can't be. And to say, well, maybe you let him rebuild his confidence. He has a great night. You don't throw him back. What are you talking about? This is a guy that's got the 7th most saves in baseball history. And you have to give him kid gloves? Kudos to Brandon Hyde for going out there Saturday night. And whether or not it was something that they had talked about ahead of time with Craig Kimbrell, hey, if you get into trouble, I'm going and getting you. I don't know. But that's not easy with a veteran player and someone that's respected to say, dude, we're hooking you when you still have the chance to get the job done. It's easy to do it after the save is blown. But when there's still a chance to get out of trouble, it's not easy to do that. A part of it might be the sheer number of pitches then that Craig Kimbrell had thrown. But I give credit to Brandon Hyde for saying, no, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to go get him now, and we're going to go a different route. And I don't know what that means moving forward. I'll opine today at PressBoxOnline.com that I think Craig Kimbrell can have a serious role in this bullpen, but I think the Orioles need to start figuring out who the closer is. Now, part of that is confirmation bias. I said that to you guys when the Orioles signed Craig Kimbrell. I said, I got no problem with them signing Craig Kimbrell, but to be the closer? No. And I get it. He got off to a great start to the season. But these issues, workload problems, yes, he's plenty capable in moments of delivering. And to me, that's Craig Kimbrell's value moving forward. It was interesting how many callers we had on the radio show yesterday who were just like, get rid of him. I'm like, what the F?
Trade him for Mason Miller.
Yes, I'm all for that, for the record. But it's just bizarre. Like, just because someone doesn't have this role, like, doesn't mean. Imagine, like, treating your, like, a starting wide receiver in the NFL that way. Like, imagine, well, if he's not catching
Touchdowns.
8 balls a game, then he
Right.
can't be on the team. What? I think it's time. And I think the obvious thing to do would be to give Yennier Cano the opportunity to prove again that he might be capable of being the closer. And he might not. We saw what it looked like at the end of the year last year. It wasn't great. But he's been great to start the season. He certainly handled the moment on Saturday night. He got it. Got a little hairy, put another guy on, but then huge strikeout. I just think the answer is this isn't a World Series winning closer. Which doesn't mean he's not a World Series caliber, high leverage pitcher. And that's important because as we've talked about a million times, I think you need a few of those. The value of the closer to me, this is always a difficult conversation to have because it feels like I'm using the eye test thing. It's a little bit about their actual data. The data for Felix Bautista last year was overwhelming, right? One of the most historic strikeout rates that we've ever seen. He wasn't perfect. No closer is going to be perfect. But he posted a rate unlike anything we've seen before and was used frequently. It was historic. That's a hell of a standard. You knew you weren't getting 2023 Felix Bautista this year. But there is something that when you talk to baseball people about what a closer does for you. Stan was in here talking about it with Dallas Braden a couple Fridays ago. What it does for the entire team and the belief that they have when you are confident that you are shortening games. When you are confident that we don't actually have to win 9 innings. We just got to win 8. 7 1/3 if necessary. It's not definable via statistic. And I get it. The Orioles don't look like they're short on confidence at the moment. Like, I don't think that it's impacting them that Craig Kimbrell is as vulnerable as he is. I mean, it did last weekend, tangibly, because they lost 2 games. But it didn't seem like after that weekend, the Orioles all of a sudden said, oh, panic. I mean, they turn around and they won 6 out of their next 7. But I do think there's an inherent value of having that guy. And I don't believe the Orioles have that guy. I believe they have a guy that can be helpful. A guy that can be called upon sometimes in those situations. A guy that could be helpful in the 5th inning of a playoff game when it's like 3-2, but there are runners on base and you need 1 out to get out of it. And as we all forget during the course of the year, you are far quicker to pull your starting pitcher in that spot. And you have a favorable matchup opportunity, and you can go to Craig Kimbrell in that 5th inning and say, dude, we need 1 out right now. And it's not a save situation, quote unquote. But you are basically like a closer for us in this moment because we need you to close this inning and get us out of here. I think Craig Kimbrell can still have value for the Baltimore Orioles, but I don't think it's as the closer, the traditional closer for a World Series team. And look, man, it could be that a month from now you guys are scoffing at me. But if I were the Orioles, I would be exploring whether or not someone else that I have internally is that guy. Because if not, it's going to ramp up the pressure to acquire that guy. And acquiring that guy is not easy. Acquiring an arm can be had. Remember we talked to Jake Mintz last week. He was like, well, Tanner Scott will be out there. Hunter Harvey. Those things are easy. Acquiring the guy, the workhorse, the bulldog. Mason Miller is going to cost you a ton.
Class A.
Would have cost you a ton. And though, by the way, those teams don't look like they're going to be trading at the moment. I mean, I don't think that the Athletics are going to keep. I really don't believe that the Athletics are going to be able to keep this up for the entirety of the first half of the season. But who knows? Who knows?
And well, I mean, and the Guardians are like one of those teams. Like, did anyone think that Corbin Burns was going to be, traded from Milwaukee?
No,
like, they're one of those teams that.
But there's no reason for the asking price to come down for the Guardians, and that's the same thing I would say. Somebody might say that about the Athletics. Like, they're about to move to Sacramento. Why do they really care? They're not going to take less than the full value of what that player is. Emmanuel Clase has an extraordinarily favorable contract. Mason Miller has 6 years of team control.
But they're not untouchable.
They're not untouchable, but they're only touchable at a price that will be truly commensurate with what their actual value is. And that price is steep, particularly for a franchise that believes they have a closer for the coming years. Which doesn't mean I believe that it's a no-how, no way, you better not trade him. I don't think it's that. But or you better not trade for someone. I don't mean you would trade Felix Bautista. I don't know why I said it that way. That was very weird. It doesn't mean that you better not make a trade for another reliever, because I would say it's a good problem to have if you have multiple closers moving forward. Again, you got too many starting pitchers right now. Have too much of everything and just go win. But I think the cost of acquiring that type of player is going to be difficult for this franchise to stomach. I would like to find out first if there's a chance that guy might be on the roster already. And if it ain't Cano, maybe it is Tyler Wells. I mean, it's a hell of a 0 to 60, right? But maybe it is. So I write about it today at PressBoxOnline.com. I'll put myself out there. I think the Orioles should give Yennier Cano an opportunity to be the primary closer moving forward.
Is it a bad thing if they? I mean,
I don't think they will, for the record.
Okay.
I just don't think that Brandon Hyde. I think the deference that they'll continue to show to Craig Kimbrell, I think it will take something worse than this. I don't think it's going to be a rope for the entire season. I also am not a favor of closer by committee, because again, it goes.
Tampa has,
but it goes back to me of the inherent value of having that guy, like the confidence that you have. And I know it was pointed out. We had Ryan Ripken on the show yesterday, and he talked about, hey, right now, Coulombe's been good late in games. Jacob Webb's been good late in games. Cano's been good late in games. Maybe you just look at matchups and you figure out what the best matchup is for that particular reliever on that particular night. Yeah, I would be inclined first to try to figure out if you've got a guy, and then I would consider that after that. But the first move I would make at this point is I think it's time again to give Yennier Cano the opportunity. That's my opinion. I won't be shared by all. My opinion is let him have the chance. Coming up in just a second, we're going to be joined by Kenny McPeek, the Kentucky Derby winning trainer of Mystik Dan. Later on, we're going to catch up with Jorge Castillo of ESPN.com, covers baseball for them. We'll talk Orioles. He wrote about Gunnar Henderson last week. Also this morning, we'll catch up with Towson lacrosse coach Shawn Nadelen. The Tigers are back in the NCAA Tournament. They beat Delaware for the CAA title on Saturday. They now travel to Syracuse. It was a disappointing weekend for the rest of the local teams in college lacrosse. Navy lost in the Patriot League semifinals on Friday night. Maryland and Hopkins both lost in the Big Ten semifinals. UMBC lost in the America East semifinals. Just a bummer of a weekend, but not a bummer for Towson. Not a bummer for the Loyola women either. They ended up winning the Patriot League. Actually, that was a thriller in overtime against Navy on Saturday. And Also this morning, of course, it's Monday, so we'll catch up with Jeremy Conn. All of that coming up on a Monday edition of the program. Today's show is brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. CountySports.zone is the website for CSZ, County Sports Zone. Everything you need to know, all of the latest scores, schedules, rankings, news, updates, play pick'em as we move into championship season, the high school sports level for baseball, softball, boys and girls, lacrosse. CountySports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Do you want to grab a break?
Yes,
And then we'll try to talk to Kenny McPeek? All right, we'll grab a break now. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Craving that classic New York deli experience? Look no further than the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. Corned beef piled high, hand-rolled bagels, and something different. A bar! Atman's has food and drink specials every day. Now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at the bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find us at Harbor Point or visit atmansdeli.com.
What company makes your home more energy efficient, purifies your air, kills all viruses, and qualifies you for $6,000 in rebates? A.J. Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson profiles Grayson Rodriguez, talking to people who have been part of his path as the Orioles hope he'll become their next homegrown ace. Also inside, we remember legendary Maryland basketball coach Lefty Drizel with stories from legends like Roy Williams and Bobby Cremins about what it was like to go up against the old left-hander. Press Box is available at over 500 locations around Baltimore, including 60 Royal Farm stores. You can also find the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
The Ed Block Courage Award Foundation has been working in partnership with the NFL for 46 years to support abused, neglected, and at-risk youth across the country, partnering each team with a children's facility or program that supports the well-being of those in need. Annually, one player from each team is selected by their peers to receive the Courage Award for their inspiration on and off the field. Learn more about how the Ed Block Courage Award Foundation makes a difference, and be sure to check out their latest podcast and web series episodes at edblock.org.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Monday edition of the program. Perhaps they're making a decision about Mystik Dan right now. We're going to try to track down Kenny McPeek at some point as he was supposed to join us in this moment, but I know they were kind of leaving things up in the air. I should double check and see if they haven't made a decision of some sort. No, I don't see anything. They were still trying to see how it was going to play out and how Mystik Dan was going to respond. So we'll look to try to track down Kenny McPeek at some point this morning. Kentucky Derby winning trainer. Oh, maybe that's him right there. How about that? Times out perfectly. Coming up a little bit later on today, Stan the Fan, Ross Grimsley, Luke Jackson, they're going to get together, 4:15, talk some Orioles. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports is how you'll be able to check it out. Stan, Ross, and Luke talking baseball a little bit later on this afternoon. As we were just discussing, this man, what a weekend it was. I think Lamar Jackson's dominant in Louisville. Whew. This guy, all he did, back-to-back, Kentucky Oaks on Friday, Kentucky Derby on Saturday. His horse, Mystik Dan. Now we'll see how it plays out over the next couple of days and hope that he'll be joining us in Baltimore in a couple of weeks. For the first time, we say Kentucky Derby winning trainer Kenny McPeek with us this morning here on GCR. Kenny, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you. Congratulations, man. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. You know, that's got a nice tune to it, doesn't it? That Kentucky Derby winning.
That can't suck, can it?
It's been a whirlwind weekend. I feel like I'm kind of walking in a dream world. Although we've worked our tail off for years to get to that point, and I'm going to tell you, I've visualized it. I believe in those things, that you need to have a vision and you have to have the confidence it's going to happen, and you have to firmly believe that it's going to happen. And by goodness, we pulled it off.
Kenny, I do wonder, some of this, in this sport, there is an amount of luck that's involved, but you've been doing this for a long time, and you've had a lot of really good horses, and you've won a lot of really big races. Did you ever deal with that? Were you always confident, hey, it's going to be one of these horses it's going to work out with? Or did you ever have that doubt that crept in, like, what if I'm the guy that never won the big one? Like, what if that ends up being my fate in this sport?
Well, I mean, so many things are out of your control, and you can only concentrate on, how your horse is doing, and are you in the right spot here, or and there's horse math. You can, look at speed figures and things like that, but it is very much a very artistic. It's not numbers, it's feel, and horses are these. The thoroughbred itself is one of the most amazing creatures on the planet. I mean, it's evolved through breeding and matching, mating mares and stallions, and I've been interested in. I'm going to say borderline a little obsessed with that since I was a kid. I mean, I learned how to read a pedigree when I was 10 or 11 years old.
Wow.
And I learned to look at horses, and then, as a trainer, I look at the pedigree and I look at the horse, and then I look at how they're made and how they move, and then it's a matter of kind of putting it all together. And then people started giving me a little bit of a budget and saying, hey, I'm going to let you buy me a horse. Well, then I go look at horses and say, okay, that one can run, that one can't run. I want a horse that has all these right parts in the right places. And I believe horses are like these living, breathing constellations, and it literally is about positive energy, and it's all got to come together. But how a horse is made, and the angles, and literally, like, how we lay in the grass and we look at the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, whether all the stars are in the right place. It's the same with the racehorse. They've got to have all these right angles, and I don't know. I see it for some reason, and I love doing it. I miss going down and doing the show down in Louisville, but I still enjoy, obviously, watching all the coverage and hearing you last week and even on Saturday, for as much attention was being paid to Fierceness in Sierra Leone, it sounded like you always believed that Mystik Dan deserved a bit more attention, a bit more credit than perhaps that horse was getting. Why did you have such faith in this horse going into the Derby? Well, I wasn't worried. Honestly, I wasn't worried about the attention. It doesn't really matter. I mean, there's a lot of prognosticators. They don't really know as much as they're supposed to, I suppose. So I'm bringing the horses up to the race, and you've got to make a decision. We had to make a decision on Common Defense, who was on the border. He would have gotten in, and subsequently didn't get to run, but he wasn't 100%. Yeah. So that was an easy one, right? And then I had, we have veterinarians in the barn, and we like to hit details. And horsemen are problem solvers. We deal with, horses have foot issues, and sometimes horses have cut on the mouth, and sometimes they're not eating like you want them to, or they have glute muscles, or maybe a hock or an ankle. There's a myriad of details that you have to worry about. So I called Steve Alday. He's a guy I have world respect for, and he can hit acupuncture points and check horses' physical. And I said, Steve, let's go over these two. I said, I didn't let him know I didn't see anything, but I said, go over these two horses and tell me if you can find anything. And he looked at them both, and he said, Kenny, there's nothing to worry about here. There's not a pimple on either one of them.
Wow. And
he said, I can't help you. And so when I say that, like, would you adjust? I've known people that do a little chiropractic work or, massage work, but he said, Kenny, those horses are brilliant. No problem. And so that gave me quite a bit of confidence going into it. And then you watch them every day and watch their movements and how their energy level. Mystik Dan's a horse that likes to be grazed daily. He's a really, really old soul, this horse. He stood in the paddock for the Derby like a 20-year-old pony.
Huh.
He doesn't, you could set a bomb off underneath him. He would never budge. It's a very, very unusual personality. Thoroughbreds are thought to be high-strung and difficult. It's not true. But he is extremely intelligent, was calm, cool, and collected through the whole thing, which is vital. You need that. The filly's not so much that. She's more of a little bit wound up, and she gets a little bit temperamental, but rarely. And you can't, she hears a click of a camera and she jumps. So, so they're different. They're all different. So we don't put her in an environment that would we schooled her a lot. We didn't school him much because he's so easy. So these are the kind of things we deal with daily.
Man, it's fast. It's a fascinating look inside your world. Kenny McPeek with us here, of course, trainer of the Kentucky Derby winner and the Kentucky Oaks winner. Kenny, if I could, because I remember like watching after the race, and I almost felt like there was like an apprehension on you, even after it was kind of clear to everybody they had seen the video. I guess let me walk through the whole thing. Did you know, like just from watching it live, were you confident that Mystik Dan had held on? And then when did it hit you like, oh, my God, I really did just win the Kentucky Derby?
Well, first of all, it's not it's we.
Sure. Yeah,
there's
fair.
an army of people.
Yeah.
There's an army of people that put all the work into it. It's not just me. And I watched a lot of photo finishes at Churchill, and I do know where the wire is. It actually sits a little bit before the white post. And so that gave me pretty confident. I was a little ways down, but I thought the angle, we were good. There was a monitor to my right that NBC had set up that actually showed the slow-mo of him hitting the wire. And he was clearly, when I say one easy, it was easily 4 or 5 inches.
Right. So very easy. Very breathing room, really.
But it wasn't one of those 1 inch, it might be a dead heat type of one. So, I was fine with it. But there's an old saying that I read years ago about horse racing. And you win like you're used to it and lose like you like it. So obviously when you win, you have to do that gracefully. You don't rub it in anybody's nose. You don't get crazy. You just, it's a very humbling sport. When you lose, you have to lose gracefully because losing is part of it. You lose a lot of races to win a few races. And so when you lose, you have to figure out why I lost and how I could do anything different. And did the jockey, did he need something from my end of it to help him get there? Does he need something from me to get there? It's a team effort. And back to the Derby, Brian Hernandez won that horse race.
Man,
that was a brilliant ride. He has always been a fantastic jockey. He's a little bit under the radar. He's very soft-spoken. He doesn't toot his horn. He's going to be in more demand now, I assume. But he's, we've worked together 7 or 8 years. I don't hesitate. That's what I want. I tell my clients, I want Brian. Brian's a great jockey. And they go, well, we could get Ortiz, or we could get this guy or that guy. I said, no, Brian's my guy. You're with me or you're not. And I wouldn't fight too much over it, but most of them say, yeah, okay, we're good with Brian. But I want to touch on a point. Something is in the water in Louisiana. Okay, that creates these guys.
Yeah,
they create jockeys in Louisiana like no place else in the world. I don't know if it's the Cajun food, or the water, or the swamps, or what, but you go back to Eddie De La Houssaye, Robbie Alvarado won the Preakness for me a few years back.
I hear Calvin was okay. I hear he was decent.
Ken DeSormo.
Yeah.
Shane Sellers, one of the best, even underrated rider, I think still, they really should be in the Hall of Fame. Shane Sellers, fantastic jockey. Mark Guidry, I could go on and on. There's so many of them that really know how to horseback, and I really like riding the Louisiana Cajun riders, and they're professionals, and they love what they do. They do it with a smile on their face. It's fun for them, and nothing against the rest of the riding colony, but you look back in my career, got a long list of them that have won a lot of big races for me.
Kenny, every time I get it, you guys are not making a decision yet, and you want to ride. And first of all, I think it starts with that I appreciate that, right? As someone who cares about the sport and cares about the health of the horses, I appreciate that. What do the next couple of days look like? As you can imagine, everyone in our city is waiting with bated breath, right? Like, we are living and dying over this. What is it that you want to see? And was it part of was this always sort of the plan? Hey, if we happen to win, we're not just going to say yes immediately. We're going to wait this thing out and make sure the horse is okay.
Well, the guy told me a long time ago, never make a decision till you absolutely positively have to. It's okay to change your mind. And I'm not going to make a decision for the horse. The horse is going to tell us. And that's okay. For those out there that don't know about horses and what we trainers deal with, a feed tub makes all the difference. When we feed these horses on a schedule, and they're fed religious schedule, and they need to eat regularly. And when they don't consume their grain, the feed, then they don't have energy to expend to race. And so we watch the feed tub. And so I've got fantastic guy, Eric, is in the barn every day, and he sends me notes. Boss, this one left a half scoop. This one left 3/4 of a scoop. A scoop is equivalent to 2 quarts.
Okay.
And so horses are fed at 3:30 a.m. They get 1 scoop or 2 quarts. 4 quarts at 10:30. At 4:30, they get 6 quarts. So they're getting 12 quarts a day. And so that feed program is going to dictate how they're eating, dictates how they run a lot of times. So when they don't eat well, they don't run well. And so we're watching the feed tub. The night after the Derby, look, he didn't get tucked away until nearly midnight. I mean, it seemed like it was just a parade of people, and there was a lot of things going on. And he's interested in the people, so you can't get him to rest and eat.
Sure.
He left 3 quarts on Sunday morning, which is a little bit of a concern. Okay, here's the good news, Baltimore. He ate everything last night.
There we go.
Okay. So we're gonna focus in on that. He goes back to the track on Wednesday. And then, we've got to, we'll jog him a mile, gallop him a mile Wednesday, something light just to make sure he's moving well. We'll probably extend his gallops Thursday, Friday, Saturday. He doesn't need much work going into this. But if he stays in the feed tub, he'll come. And if he doesn't, he won't.
Okay.
So it's really that simple.
I appreciate that. And I do appreciate you all caring about the horse. That means a lot. I guess if I could wrap this way, Kenny, you've won a Preakness before. I know it was obviously a very different type of Preakness at that point, but it still counts. It matters. What would it mean to you to be in Baltimore with the Preakness winner and being treated like a king the way that you have seen so many guys be treated like kings over the course of the last few years?
Well, they've always treated me great in Baltimore. I mean, I've always loved coming up there. I mean, it's a wonderful town, and it's the Preakness is always a great experience. I'm not going to approach it much different. I mean, although Baffert might be upset that I get the stall and he doesn't. No, but
he's had it plenty. He's had it plenty.
Bob called me yesterday, and I've heard from Lucas, and I've heard from Nick Zito, and
that's cool.
I mean, all of them are friends of mine, and very proud to know them all. And we're going to keep putting one foot in front of the other and not getting too carried away with everything. And there's a lot of work to do every day. And, I'm not going to change that. And, got a lot of people that I'm responsible for, and and horses, obviously. And, we'll, come up there if we come. And if we don't, then we'll see you at Saratoga. So like I said, it's just kind of up in the air, but right now I feel leaning. I got to talk to Lance Gasaway first. And he's, kind of the guy that I depend on when we make decisions on him, and he's the one to let it happen. So we'll see.
Well, I appreciate that, and we like the encouraging signs. May that feed tub be empty every time you guys check the rest of the week.
Exactly.
Kenny McPeek, we're so happy for you, man. What a performance that was, and yeah, Brian, we'll make sure we try to track down Brian this week. I know he's a busy man. We want to track him down, too, because you're right. What a ride that was on Saturday. Congratulations. And for the entire weekend, really, congratulations. Hopefully we'll be seeing you here in a few days. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Thank you.
Kenny McPeek, trainer of Mystik Dan. And I know it's very frustrating for everybody here. Like, they want the first thing that we hear. They want it to be the first thing that they say is, yep, we'll see you in Baltimore in 2 weeks. And I appreciate that. But, this is the reality. The reality is that they want to do the right thing by the horses. And that's what we should want. The people who love the sport. We should want that. So I'm good with that. And as you could, the sounds of that is, look, that's what we want. We want this to work out, that we're in Baltimore next week. As long as the horse is good, we'll be there. And then we'll have an electric week. So we'll root for that. Incredible finish. I think I saw something like 20 million people watch the Derby on Saturday. Every time we get to this point, somebody's like, I think the sport's dying. Yeah, we still love those events. That's why I try to remind everybody, like, all of the negativity that you feel about, there's only so many events. There are only so many of these. Embracing ours and trying to do everything in our power to lift it up because it is beneficial. You can't replicate that. You just can't. Happy for Kenny McPeek. Hell of a weekend. Today's show is also brought to you by Atman's Deli in Harbor Point. It's everything you love about the original Atman's, but now with a full bar. Atman's Harbor Point. The corned beef piled high, the delicious deli sandwiches, the hot dogs, the fried bologna, the desserts, the soups, breakfast every day with those hand-rolled bagels. It's all there. But on top of that, a full bar where you can hang out and watch games. Go to atmansdeli.com right now to see their daily specials. You can also order online. But it's so worth you checking out Atman's Deli. It's just such a cool neighborhood now in Harbor Point. I really encourage you to get over there on your way to or from a game, whatever it is that you're doing. Get over, check out Atman's Deli in Harbor Point. And again, find the daily specials and order online at atmansdeli.com. All right, we continue here on a Monday edition of GCR. Continue to get me your 3 up and 3 down. We'll get to that in hour number 2 of today's show. Again, it's difficult this week because it's hard to pick just 3 up and it's hard to even pick 3 down. But get me your choices again at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter. We'll go over them in hour number 2. But let's talk a little Orioles right now. Our next guest was checking out the Birds last week, wrote about Gunnar Henderson at ESPN.com. It's a pleasure for us to welcome in from ESPN. MLB writer Jorge Castillo is with us now on GCR. Jorge, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you, man. Thank you so much for taking the time for us this morning.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely, Jorge. It's funny because, like, you know, in what you wrote about with Gunnar, unquestionably, I'll give you an example. I was at a party this weekend, and someone who was there, who I happen to know is a Yankees fan, I don't know how he got into this conversation, but he said, you know, some guys just have it, right? Like, Juan Soto has it. Gunnar Henderson has it. And I had that moment where I was like, wow, you really just used those two guys in the same sentence and talked about them the same way. But we kind of are getting to a point where, like, that is what we believe Gunnar Henderson is. Like, we really believe he's that echelon of baseball player, correct?
Yeah, I think so. And he's just so young. He's 20. I mean, he's 23 now. I thought 22 still. So one of the youngest players, you know, one of the young stars in the league, in the majors. And obviously playing a premium position at shortstop. He's getting better there after splitting some time between, you know, a couple of different positions last year. And just watching him this week, this past week, you know, obviously that first at bat, taking Clark Schmidt deep to lead off the series, basically lead off the game for the Orioles. He's just an athlete. He's a big kid, 6'3", 6'4", you know, obviously fast, has that power, and he's the kind of guy that Clark Schmidt said he's the kind of guy to build around. And it does seem like he's the one that will be like the star. You know, obviously Jackson Holiday's going to be a star. I know he had a little rough stretch here to start his career, but it does seem like Gunnar Henderson is sort of taking the baton as like the guy. And it's funny because Adley Rutschman's there, and Adley Rutschman might be the best catcher in baseball. He's another guy to build around. So between those two guys, the Orioles are really in good hands.
Yeah, I'd argue, as good as Gunner's been, I'd argue Adley might be the MVP of the team so far this season. He's just been that good. But to your point, like, if there's something about Gunnar Henderson, the complete baseball player, right? Like, he just really does check all of the proverbial boxes, if you will. Like, when we talk about tools, you just look at this guy and say, yep, he's got all of that in spades.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Boone last week, when I asked him, you know, what stands out about Gunnar Henderson, this didn't make the story, but he was just basically, he's tooled up. He has all those tools. And, you know, a lot of guys are tooled up. You know, there are a lot of guys that get drafted, who get signed internationally, who have all the tools. They can't put it together. This guy seems to have, you know, the baseball sense, you know, to use those tools, that athleticism, that hand-eye coordination, to be as good as he is. And again, I can't emphasize enough, he's 22 years old.
Right.
You know, there are not a lot of guys out there who, you know, perform at this level this young. I mean, Aaron Judge wasn't up until he was like 24, 25 years old to the major leagues. Obviously, Juan Soto down there in the DMV kind of spoiled everybody when he was in D.C., coming up at 19 and doing what he did. But these guys, you know, this doesn't happen very often. So the Orioles to have this kid there at shortstop, such an important position, having Rutschman as you know, behind the plate, and then having all these other guys who are coming up who are already there as well. Just doing their thing, and that pitching staff all of a sudden over the last week looks really good.
Man.
So, you know, the Orioles to me right now are the best team in the American League. You could argue, you know, between them and the Dodgers and the Braves, you know, that kind of echelon for the best team in the majors, but they're up there. And, you know, obviously you do this whole rebuild hoping for this. A lot of teams do a lot of rebuilds though, and it doesn't come out nearly as good as this has. You know, I think the Cubs and the Astros are two examples of teams that kind of did the rebuild the right way, but the way the Orioles have hit their draft picks has been pretty amazing. And this team, you know, if everything goes well, if everybody stays healthy, should be, you know, in World Series contention for a long time.
He is Jorge Castillo, and we'll link up his story about Gunnar Henderson on our Twitter account at Glenn Clark Radio for you to check out. Jorge, you say that, like, you saw what they did a week ago, obviously. Do you look at this team and say, as constructed right now, this roster can win the World Series this season?
Yeah, I think so. Now, I think what they need is back-end bullpen help.
I agree.
You know, I watched Craig Kimbrell. I came from L.A., moved out here to New York a couple months ago. Kimbrell was on the Dodgers for a season a couple years ago, and he didn't even make the postseason roster. We saw last year what he did in Philly. He kind of, you know, he struggled there in the postseason again. He has had those postseason struggles with the Red Sox in the past. I just think that's something that you need to shore up, and that's an area that a lot of teams feel like they need to shore up during, you know, by the trade deadline. So there should be pieces out there. Relievers are always traded, in July. So I think that's something they can fix or can improve upon. But besides that, the starting rotations look really good. You got John Means back, Kyle Bradish back. Obviously, Grayson Rodriguez went on the injured list, but I saw he's throwing. He's starting a throwing program. They got guys. Corbin Burns is one of the best pitchers in baseball. So they have a starting rotation that should be able to compete. And it's one of those things where starting rotations, they shrink. They might have a surplus right now, but starting rotations shrink in the postseason. You send a couple of those guys to the bullpen, they shore up the bullpen, and you go with 3-4 guys really in the postseason. And that's something the Orioles might be able to do here. Obviously if they go that far and go deep into the postseason. But I think the back end is something they can shore up. But this lineup is deep. The rotation's great. They have pretty much everything except maybe that back end.
Jorge, we agree completely, and I'm writing about it today myself with the back end of the bullpen. I would be inclined today, because I do agree with you that they've got the assets, they've got the ammunition to be able to go load up and try to get that help at the deadline. But even before that, I just the mental value of having a workhorse at the back end of your bullpen, and I'm not trying to say that I don't think Craig Kimbrell can't still be a helpful piece. I think he can. I just think we know the answer isn't a workhorse at the back end of your bullpen. I'd be inclined, if I were Brandon Hyde, particularly after we saw this play out on Saturday night where he went and got Kimbrell in the ninth and put in Yennier Cano, I feel like I'd at least want to run it back and find out if Yennier Cano might not be capable of being that guy for you. The talent has been obvious. It didn't work out well when they gave him the opportunity after Felix Bautista got hurt a year ago, but I just would be inclined. I think that I know the answer on Craig Kimbrell. It's easy for me to say. I talk for a living. I kind of feel like I'd still like to know if there might be an answer in Yennier Cano. Would you be inclined to try to give him a look as the closer before you end up going and trying to make a move in July?
Of course. I think it's two things off that. I think a lot of teams, a lot of sort of the best teams in the majors over the years, they're confident enough where they use the regular season as a bit of a dress rehearsal. I mean, I'm not saying, you give up on games or whatever, but, use this time. Use Cano in that spot. See how that happens. See what happens there. I think that's an opportunity, and then you figure out what you do have, what you don't have, and then you address it accordingly by the deadline. Now, the other part of this is that Kimbrell's a veteran. He's, you could argue he's a Hall of Famer. Dropping him to a setup role could be a big deal in the clubhouse for him, that kind of thing. So that's maybe a touchy sort of subject, touchy area, but I do think in the long run, I think that is the move for now. Is you try somebody else out there, someone like Cano who obviously has great talent and can maybe master that role. And if he does that role really well, then instead of getting a closer at the deadline, you're looking at maybe a seventh inning guy or an eighth inning guy.
Right.
And that the price drops there. So this is a chance for the Orioles to experiment. Their lineup is so good. The rotation right now is so good that they're going to be able to win games. They're going to make the postseason if they stay healthy, and so on and so forth. So this is a chance to maybe do some experimentation with the bullpen, figure out what you have, and then address it accordingly at the deadline.
What happened last week against the Yankees, was that an example of the Orioles getting the Yankees at the right time? Because Aaron Judge it does not look like Aaron Judge at the moment. They don't have all of their pitchers, or are these flaws that we're likely to see, particularly defensively? It just did not look like a good defensive team, the Yankees last week, that are going to hurt them probably all year.
Yeah, so I think a couple things. I think that, first of all, the Orioles are just a great team right now. Aaron Judge is not quite – he has not been quite right. This past weekend, he looked a lot better against the Tigers. So the Yankees obviously hoping that he kind of gets on track and gets to be the Aaron Judge, of last year and the year before. When he's on the field, he's, one of the 3-4 best players in baseball.
Yeah.
And he's not been terrible this year. The average is down, but he's getting on base and all that. He's getting home runs. The defense has not looked sharp. The Yankees defense has not looked sharp. They did not have Verdugo in left field. He's probably their best defensive outfielder for those first 3 games. In the infield, Gleyber Torres had a rough go of it at second base. Volpe won a Gold Glove last year. He's had a few errors. So yeah, they've had some issues defensively. But I think the Yankees are the second best team in the American League right now at this moment. I think. With the way I think Aaron Judge is going to get back on track. Unless he's hurt, they keep saying he's not hurt. He's going to get back on track. The track record's too good. You got Juan Soto. And in that, you mentioned the pitching staff. Garrett Cole's not around. And their pitching staff has been amazing so far this year. His replacement, Luis Till, was the one that won them the game last week in Baltimore.
Yeah, outdueled Corbin Burns.
So he, Nestor Cortez has looked really good. Carlos Rodon's having a bounce back here. Clark Schmidt is having a solid season. Marcus Stroman, he's had his struggles here lately, but, he's a guy with a track record pedigree as well. So I think pitching-wise, the surprising thing about the Yankees is the offense has just been off. They score in bunches. There are times when they, don't get that timely hit. But I think the Yankees ultimately, offensively, will figure it out. Defensively, we'll see. I do think that might be an issue for them for, the long haul here, unless they make some changes. But Garrett Cole coming back, Aaron Judge getting it back on track, and maybe the offense kind of figuring it out as a whole. I think they're going to be in it for the season unless they get, unless they deal with some injuries. But I still think right now, the Orioles are the class of the American League, and I think the Rangers, once those guys get healthy, that's another team to keep an eye out on. And I really like the Mariners. Their starting rotations, amazing. And Julio Rodriguez hasn't really done much so far this year. So, there are a few threats out there, but right now I think the Orioles are the best team in the American League.
Yeah, we won't be all that upset if the Yankees aren't that team, but I get it. I think you're probably right if that's the case. At Jorge Castillo on Twitter is how you can give him a follow. Jorge, is there anything else you got going on that we can plug for you?
No, just we'll be putting up my stories on ESPN.com. Hopping on, doing different things there. We got some stuff going on the website. So just we'll be at I'll be here. I live in New York. Got the Yankees and Astros here this week, so that'll be a big series. So I'll be there ready from that one.
I cannot figure it out. It makes no sense to me how bad the Astros are, and yet they are really bad. It is wild. It is really wild. Jorge Castillo, thank you for taking the time for us this morning, man. Really enjoyed this. Would love to do it again as the season goes on.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me.
Jorge Castillo from ESPN with us here on GCR as we're winding down here in hour number 1. Coming up next, Towson lacrosse coach Shawn Nadelen joins us. Then we'll go 3 up and 3 down. That's on the way. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Hartford Community College will host the National Junior College Athletic Association's 2024 Men's Lacrosse National Championship and Women's Lacrosse Invitational on May 11th and 12th at Hartford Sports Complex, 401 Thomas Run Road in Bel Air, Maryland. The semifinals on May 11th include the Women's Invitational, with the Women's North A representative playing the Mid-Atlantic B representative at 10 a.m., and the Women's North B representative facing off against the Mid-Atlantic A representative at 12:30 p.m. For the men's championship, the number 1 seed will play the lowest remaining seed in the quarterfinal round at 3:30 p.m. The men's number 2 seed will face off against the highest remaining seed at 6 p.m. May 12th is reserved for the national championship games at noon for the women and 4 p.m. for the men. Tickets are $20 each day at HartfordEvents.com or at the gate if available.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
There is a place where tradition, family, and community gather, where the aspirations of talented young competitors takes root, and where the crossroads of history, culture, and renewal come together. This spring, experience America's newest and most innovative ballpark, Meritus Park in Hagerstown, Maryland, home of the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Plan your getaway today. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland. Visit Hagerstown.com.
Hungry? With 7 locations throughout Maryland, Glory Days Grill is always right around the corner. They have wings, burgers, salads, sandwiches, and drinks to satisfy everyone, as well as tons of televisions and sound delivered right to your phone. Glory Days is the best place to watch football or whatever your favorite sport is. While you're there, be sure to check out Goose Flights Lager, named in honor of legendary Raven Tony Goose Siragusa. $2 of every can is donated to the Goose Flights Foundation. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
Oh, honey, we better stop for gas soon. Let's pull into that Royal Farms.
Ugh, gas is so expensive.
Nope, it'll be cheaper than you think.
Why's that?
I signed up for Rofo Pay on the Royal Farms app. Now we save 15 cents per gallon at all Royal Farms.
Wow, that'll save us a ton of money. I love you more every day.
Well then, don't get a speeding ticket this trip, okay?
Sign up for Rofo Rewards and upgrade to Rofo Pay and save 15 cents a gallon on gas for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
Hello, sure do. Absolutely. In here on a Monday edition of GCR. And, boy, it was a busy weekend. A lot going on throughout the world of sports, including, of course, the NCAA Lacrosse Tournament field being finalized. And we had the opportunity to catch up. Oh, okay. Nothing like preparation. Nothing like it. We did have the opportunity to catch up after Towson knocked off Delaware in the CAA championship game. I don't know how long I can pat this, so I'm gonna start sweating in a second. But a little bit earlier this morning, because their practice schedule, because they got more games to play now for Towson, including Sunday night, we had the opportunity to catch up with Shawn Nadelen, their head coach, right here on GCR. Well, Towson Lacrosse back in the NCAA Tournament for the first time since 2019. A drought far too long, I imagine, for our next guest, as he is, of course, the head coach of the Tigers, fresh off an emphatic win over Delaware in the CAA Tournament. They travel to Syracuse Sunday night. He is Coach Shawn Nadelen. Coach, it's Glenn. It's great to chat with you, man. Thank you for taking the time, and congratulations on such an emphatic performance.
Glenn, good morning. Thank you. Thanks for having me, and yeah, very excited to be talking to you about Towson Lacrosse in the postseason.
No doubt, Coach. Did you know that was coming on Saturday? Like, did you? You had just played them a couple days earlier, and it was obviously a much closer game. Was there anything about your team and the way that they had risen this season? Did you know that they had that type of performance in them?
Well, we knew we had that type of performance just from kind of having done that previously in the season, both regular season and non-conference, conference and non-conference play. The outcome on Thursday against Drexel was similar, but with the way that the Delaware game went, just 7 days before, and it was a 1-goal game. I mean, had all the feel of a CAA championship game on the last Friday night of the regular season. Yep. So I didn't expect us to do that per se, just from the game previously, but we knew we had it in us, and our guys made it go that way.
Yeah, they sure did. Coach, you mentioned like what you had seen during the course of the season, and I know that this team yet hasn't accomplished some of the same things that your other really good teams have accomplished. But is it possible that this might be maybe one of the most balanced teams that you've had since you've been the head coach at Towson?
I'd say that's fair, Glenn. Just with our personnel all over the field, from returning quite a few experienced guys on the offensive end, as well as through the middle of the field at the face-off. Having some good balance there. Being a little bit inexperienced but not young on the defensive end coming into the year, and now those guys have experience and have played in some tough games, some close games, some games we've controlled. So those guys are they got a year of experience under the belt and are playing well as a unit. So I would say that's definitely, a pretty fair statement.
We talked before the season about the emergence last year of Mikey Wiseauer, and I got to see that young man play. I was doing some games at Spalding, and the talent was always so obvious to me. The way he came on this season to become such a reliable goal scorer for you, how much did that mean in your team being able to perform offensively at the level that it did?
It was important. Mikey got a full year coming into the season. Last year was his freshman year. He missed the fall. So that just takes time, especially as a freshman to get, fully acclimated into Division I intensity and pace of play. So I think we're seeing what that looks like now for him. But really, our offense integrating, everyone's talents coming together. Mikey brings a dynamic to it. His other line mates with Josh Weber and Chuck Gallagher bring it, as well as, an experienced attack group. So it's really fun to see everything mesh, and Coach Newsy and Coach Shills on our offensive end have done a really good job with that.
Well, I was going to say, and at this point, like Nick DeMeo truly kind of writing his way into the history books at Towson the way that he's performed over the last few years.
Yes, he, Nick's just been a great story of growth and maturity through his time here at Towson. We asked him to take on a little bit different role this year. He's a great voice. He's got a strong IQ. He's a good communicator on the field. And to be more of a field general for us on the offensive end is what we needed. And it takes away a little bit maybe from what he did previously of really, trying to create his shots and trying to get, high volume shooting. It's just kind of less of that, but more opportunistic, in what we need out of him.
Is Coach Shawn Nadelen, of course, Towson, back in the NCAA Tournament, headed up to Syracuse on Sunday night, where, a program I hear you have some history against, but we'll get that back in a second. Coach, I mentioned, it's 5 years, and that's not – I know that COVID is in there, and there's a lot of situations that play out that lead to something like that, but how important was it for you to make sure that this program got back to this place, that this is the standard for Towson lacrosse?
It is. That's something that this program has built, itself into, and we don't take that lightly, every year. And we also understand how difficult that can be. We've been fortunate to have success on a high level, but we've been also unable to attain it. So we realize it's not easy. But really, it's about these seniors, and it's about these guys. Being a special group, coming in kind of on the back end of COVID, moving into the dorms with no other students, on campus their freshman year, galvanizing themselves as a group, and then all of that, really parlaying into their senior year and, not having the success that, they've wanted, but being able to manifest it into where we are now. And, these guys have been phenomenal. And our team's responded in a big way to them.
Was there a moment for you this season, like when you realized this group is different? And not to say that you haven't had good teams, and I don't want to make it seem, but I don't know how this works for a coach. Like, can you tell a team has a championship medal, before they do win a championship? Was there a point at which you said, I think there's something special about this group?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you do try to read into that a little bit as a coach, and see how these guys get tested in different games and different environments. But the consistent, piece to our guys this year is that they've, whatever's happened, whether we've had, wins and successful games and played really well, or a loss or a tough loss in overtime at Loyola. These guys just, they get back to work the next day, and they get focused in. There were never really any hangovers. There weren't really any, hey, we're feeling really good about ourselves, and, we're, nobody can beat us kind of thing, but getting like overconfident. There's just a really good feel about, working to improve, and working to be the best versions of ourselves every day in practice.
Did you chuckle at all when you saw it with Syracuse? Did you get even like a little like wry smile on the side of your face?
Yeah, I mean, you never know how that's going to shake out. I didn't, do any digging to find out, who, we might see or anything. So it was again, it's wherever the committee wants to put us, that's fine. We earned our way in, and, once you're in, then, you've earned your opportunity, and, everybody's good. At this point, the team's left standing. So, that's what you're facing, and for us, it's continuing to focus on how we need to continue to improve, and, being able to travel up there and, play against, another talented team will be, another great opportunity for us.
For those that aren't aware, back in 2017, Towson beat Syracuse in the quarterfinals to advance to the Final Four. That game played at Delaware. My father and I were actually sitting in the stands for that one, enjoying the heck out of it, Coach. And I will,
nice.
It's interesting to me, right, because there's something about the Sunday night game at the Dome, right? And I know that these players weren't involved in what happened in 2017, but can you use that this week? And heck, I mean, even the way that you guys competed against Virginia this season, how much do you feel like your team has the belief that we are this good and we are worthy and we are capable of going somewhere like that and winning a game against a team of this caliber?
I mean, there's always been belief in this team, these guys, to each other and for each other all season. I think, our body of work has shown that. Our first game against Hopkins, we weren't there yet from a production standpoint, but I think it's, again, the lessons learning from that, and then coming out and, again, attacking our schedule. The belief is 100% there in our guys. And, again, we know what we do really well. We know why that's important to us, and we're going to continue to focus on that. And, the guys aren't fools. I'm sure they're seeing stuff on social media about the 2017, game and quarterfinal, and Joe Sider's, shot that's still, is one of the more beautiful shots, that's, been played in the tournament. So, if that gives them just that much more, shot in the arm, great. But, I don't think these guys need any more, inspiration or motivation other than the guys in the locker room that they get to go to battle with every day.
Did you know going into that game that year, like, did you inside of you say, I mean, I'm guessing you probably didn't know it was going to be 6-0 at the end of the first quarter, but like, did you know that team had it in? I just don't know how this works with coaches. Like, do you guys get surprised sometimes by the way things go?
You never really, I mean, right, we're not, fortune tellers and stuff. You never really know how it's going to shake out. You look at kind of matchups, you look at, your personnel versus their personnel, and like you feel like you might have an advantage, or like, hey, we got to maybe cover up some, they're really good here and we're not as good. But I felt our matchups in the middle of the field in that game with our defensive midfield group of Tyler Mays, Jack Adams, and Zach Goodrich. That was the best group in the country, that year. Sure. And their midfield was touted, but I felt like that was an area that we were going to have a little bit of an edge on, and not only from the talent but also the mentality of those guys, and that was a big piece to it. And then Matt Hoy was huge in the net for us that day when they tried to make a little bit of a run at the end, and the offense obviously did their job, but it was that was a hungry group, and had a really strong edge to them, and that rope unit really set the tone that day.
Oh, did it ever. And obviously converting extra man opportunities. It was a special day, and we're rooting for another special day coming up. Before I let you go, Coach, because we've been talking about some of these local kids, I remember talking before the season how Luke Downs has settled in as your starting keeper this year, and how important that has been to the sort of complete team that you've put together.
Yeah, I'm really proud of Luke, of his development over his years here, and maturity as well, similar to Nick DeMayo. And he's really been a steady force for us, as where we are this year, and has stepped up. In the state championship game with some key saves at moments. J.P. Ward had a nice dunk opportunity, and Luke makes a save on the doorstep, and that just pumps up your team that much more. So he's I think growing in confidence, growing in ability, and definitely been a big part of our success this year.
Coach, so happy for you, and we can't wait. I'm hoping there's a lot more conversations for us to be having before the season is over. Best of luck. Now, Sunday night, obviously, the final game of the weekend up at Syracuse. Shawn Nadelen, always appreciate you, man. So happy for you, your program. Congratulations. We'll talk again soon, all right?
Thanks so much, Glenn. Appreciate it.
That's Shawn Nadelen, head coach at Towson. They're on the road at Syracuse, and that'll wrap up the weekend in the NCAA Lacrosse Tournament. Not just them on the men's side. Maryland does get in. Don't feel great about where they are going into the tournament, 8-5 on the season, but they will host Princeton Saturday night at 7:30. And Johns Hopkins, of course, also in. They'll host Lehigh Sunday at noon over at Homewood Field. So those will be the 3 local teams in the men's NCAA Division I tournament. Congratulations to Stevenson. They got a big win over Eastern on Saturday night, so they're back in the tournament. First conference title for them since 2019 as well. They're on the road to open up NCAA tournament play as well. And it was an emotional night. I talked about Callum Robinson last week, and he was celebrated and honored on Saturday night. They're at Union this Saturday at 3 o'clock to open up the NCAA tournament. And as I mentioned, the Loyola women, they didn't get any favors done for them in the seeding for the NCAA tournament, man. They went 17-2 this year.
Oh, man.
They beat Florida, they beat Hopkins, they beat Penn State. Their only losses were at Syracuse and at Penn, who were both very good. But they got to go on the road to Duke. Actually, no, I don't think it's at Duke. I think it's somewhere else. I want to say, I don't remember who's hosting. It might be Penn that's hosting that pod. But they play Duke on Friday in the opener. I don't think it's at Duke. But tough. It's a tough road, but Loyola ever capable of making a run on the women's side of the NCAA tournament. The Maryland women also did get in, despite the fact that it was a very un-Maryland-like year for them this year. They finished 12-5, not used to losing 5 games. They host Robert Morris on Friday.
Loyola women are in Philly.
Is it at Penn?
Yes.
Is
Yes.
it? Yeah, Penn. That's what I thought. It was hosting that pod. All right.
Franklin Field, I assume that's Penn? No.
Yes, Franklin Field is Penn. Correct. The historic Franklin Field. All right, very good. Now, let's get into 3 Up and 3 Down. 3 Up and 3 Down is brought to you this week by Sports and Social, the best place to watch all of the big events. I know it was a crazy weekend with Fight Night on Saturday night. Sports and Social, Inside Live Casino and Hotel. Playoffs continue, basketball and hockey. Of course, all of the baseball. You can watch the PGA Championship next weekend. A little bit of a horse race going on. All of that, the best place to watch it is at Sports and Social. They'll also be showing the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul thing, whatever you want to call it. All
Real pro fight sanctioned bout.
That's correct. It is a sanctioned
bout.
bout. Reserve your table by going to their website. Reserve your blue reclining chair by stopping by the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. And the best place to watch every event is at Sports and Social. All right, you know how it works. 3 Orioles who are up for the week, 3 Orioles who are down for the week. We should probably give updated totals. I know you do it on the website, but just to pass it along on here as well. I'll begin with my 3 up. I decided to only put 1 starting pitcher. We could have just made it nothing but starting pitchers.
I mean,
it would have been
close to.
It would have been totally possible to do that. But instead, for my number 3, just because I want to recognize the week that he had, I went with Jacob Webb as my my number 3 for 3 up. Oddly, did not get used against the Reds this weekend. Fairness, they didn't really need a lot from the bullpen during the course of the week. But when they needed him last week, because Craig Kimbrell wasn't available, all he did was go 2 2/3 without allowing a base runner and striking out 6. Yeah, that'll work. That'll play. Jacob Webb gets a point from me in my number 3.
That'll do.
Yeah, that'll do.
That'll do. I am going to. I mean, we're trying to find a way to get him on the board behind you. But Adley, I mean, he's just been.
I don't know how he's only your number 3.
Because the starting pitching was unbelievable.
I understand it was unbelievable, but dude, Adley Rutschman is so
Adley
effing good.
For calling games.
By the way, that is part of it too. It is part of it, and it's part of why I was not going to. Like, if he just did anything with the bases loaded, I was going to make a man of the match and say, you can be mad, but he's calling the games, too, on top of everything else.
At least my number 3.
I have no idea how he's only your number 3.
Because the pitching was unbelievable.
I agree that it was unbelievable.
And, I the guy that's my number 2, I feel like I feel emotional towards it.
Interesting. Dean Kramer is my number 2 because he was the guy that made 2 starts last week, right? And, like, that's the only one guy was going to speak for the rotation. Yes, the entire rotation had a phenomenal week. But Dean Kramer was the guy that made 2 starts, and so because of that, in a goofy way, they played 7 games and only one guy made 2 starts because that's how much pitching they have. It's insane. We know the reason is because Grayson Rodriguez also made a start in there and then didn't get to make a second. But over the course of 13 innings, 2 runs, both happened to be via solo home runs, 5 hits, 10 base runners, so I didn't do the math on what that whip is, but it's obviously it's sub 1.
I was looking at it too. He had 13 innings of work, and he allowed, 6 hits? How many walks did he have?
4 walks. So what's 10 divided by 13?
Less than 1.
Yes, I'm aware of that. No, hang on. Sorry, 5 walks. 5 walks and 5 hits. So no, the math is still 10 base runners.
0.77.
Yeah, 0.77 whip. That'll do. How
many strikeouts did he have on the week?
It wasn't actually not overwhelming. It was only like 10 strikeouts. Yeah. I mean, but look, man, he was great. He was great. And I get it. All these other guys could be on the list because they all, even Corbin Burns in the loss, delivered a very solid start. But Dean Kramer made the 2 starts, so he gets my number 2 spot.
John Means was on number 2.
I get it.
Saturday night was unbelievable. Like, and I feel like I almost get like worried watching him come back because he was the only bright spot of these terrible teams. And, it felt terrible, not him being to not really be a part of the team so much last year. And then I get worried, like, when he comes back out, like, is John Means going to be, like, as good as I remember him being? And then every time he comes back, like, taking that perfect or a no-hitter, whatever it was, in Cleveland late into the game, Saturday night. Like, I am so happy seeing John Means pitch and being John Means, like, 7 scoreless innings against a good Reds team. This is a good Reds team.
Well, are we sure?
Well, I mean, they may never win another game.
They may
never win another game. But I mean, we assume is a good Reds team.
I get it.
Ellie De La Cruz is a great player, so he's in that lineup too, and you have to get him out. And he did. Everyone did. I had a lot. I really, really enjoyed watching John Means Saturday night. I'm not.
Look, I love John Means. I've gotten to know him over the years. Obviously, Caroline's a friend, and I am extraordinarily happy for John Means. It's just that Adley Rutschman is the effing MVP of this team and should be more in the conversation about being the MVP of the league at this point. Has another week where he goes 10 for 29 at the plate, adds in 3 doubles, drives in 5, and is calling all of these, not all of them, but most of these games as the pitchers are dominating. I get part of the problem is that we can't put a statistic to that. Like, for all the statistics we have in baseball, we have no idea. No one has ever presented a statistic that suggests what the impact a catcher is having in the performance of a pitcher. But for me to try to pretend like it's nothing, I ain't doing that either. The pitching staff is otherworldly, and Adley Rutschman is producing at the plate. He is, because of that, to me, deserving of being considered the MVP of the league at the moment. I get that that's not going to happen because we don't have statistics that can define it. It's a shame we don't. We have defensive statistics. I don't know how we go about doing that, like looking into – we can't even do it with signals anymore because we don't have signals anymore. We have pitch comms, so we don't even know what pitches are being called. Like, we can't even go through and find a statistic that says here's how many – here's how many of these are the pitch that's being called in the spot. But Jesus, man, It's unreal how good Adley Rutschman has been. And it is funny that it comes on the heels of, like, some of the conversation that we had coming into the season where we were like, hey, maybe Adley Rutschman offensively will always be a little bit lesser because of the responsibility that comes along with being a catcher. And talking to Matt Wieters about that at the beginning of the season, right? Like, it just seems like you're going to have to accept that. And by the way, he's doing all of it. This is exactly the guy that we were promised. This is the guy. This is the changes your franchise because of how valuable it is that he's doing it as a catcher. And I don't know that he can keep it up hitting at this level all season long. I don't know that he can't. Because I'm not going to doubt Adley Rutschman, man. He is a special cat. Adley Rutschman, number 1 for me on 3-Up this week.
Yeah, I mean, he was my number 3. I obviously agree with everything that you said. Dean is my number 1.
He was very good. I'm not trying to take anything away from Dean Kramer. He was very, very good.
Lost 2 or 3 to the A's. He comes right back, and I mean, I felt like it was a stopper-like performance against the Yankees, and then and then obviously yesterday in Cincinnati. So me and Dean, of course, my number 1. I think for making 2 starts and being masterful in both.
All right, to 3 down for this week, where it was admittedly tougher. I'll get to it when we get to it. I almost don't like who's number 1 on the list. We'll get to it there. Number 3 is Colton Cowser. We have to talk about it. I know we're all still excited. I know we're all still enamored. I saw on Twitter what they're going to try to do, like the pasture at a game, and everybody wants to, Griffin's obsessed with mooing, and we're all dude, we got to talk about it. I don't know that his playing time is going to continue to be this warranted. This is back-to-back really bad weeks for Colton Cowser. Last week, 2 for 16. I like Colton Cowser, and I think Colton Cowser is a good baseball player. But when you have as many left-handed bats as the Orioles have, at some point, it's got to be justified, right? I said this about Anthony Santander a couple of weeks ago, and he stepped his game up. It's a highly competitive situation where I feel like we allowed a couple of weeks to dictate the way that we feel about Colton Cowser, where on the whole, I'm not sure that's exactly certainly he's not the guy that he was. I mean, because for a little while it was a pace so torrid that no one was going to live up to it. But I think the last couple of weeks have reminded us that, like, everybody has a really hot stretch. I don't know what Colton Cowser is ultimately going to be. I still think he's a good baseball player and a guy that you're happy to have. But we can't, just because we like cow, just because moo, we don't get to pretend like this isn't happening. It has been a really rough stretch for Colton Cowser these last couple of weeks, including 2 for 16 last week. I let him off the hook last week for making the list because, he's young, but I can't do it again. Colton Cowser is my number 3.
Yeah, he escaped my list because you are making good points, and the throw against the Yankees, that's I don't know, when does that start becoming a concern?
It's been a couple of throws,
but it's because I think I let this guy off my list last week. Cedric Mullins is my number 3 this
fine.
week. It's it was very not much going on offensively. Really nothing offensively from Cedric Mullins. He's still, in my opinion, the best center fielder in baseball.
Well, that's what makes it different. Look, he's number 2 on my list, and it's a different thing. Whereas I would say we got to talk about Colton Cowser's playing time at some point. I don't feel the same way about Cedric Mullins because it's what I said a couple weeks ago. The value of what he does in center field is still so significant that I'm not ready to have the conversation. But it's bad. I mean, there's no way of getting around it. It's bad. And you had that week where you're so encouraged. You're like, oh, man, everything's turning for Cedric. And it is not withstood. 2 for 17 last week. It's brutal. It's brutal offensively. But, yeah, I mean, it's the conversation I have when people wanted to go to war about Jorge Mateo's roster spot. Like, dude, you've got to recognize someone's value even as you talk about what they aren't. Cedric Mullins' value is still so significant, I'm not there. It does look less and less likely that Cedric Mullins is going to be a long-term part of the plans, and the Orioles will I know Enrique Bradfield, everybody thinks is one day like the long-term answer in center field, but I don't think they're anywhere close to that yet. It's a tough conversation, man. It's tough because you're talking about a player that is helpful and you like, but you can't. It's what I said about Colton Cowser. You can't pretend like it isn't happening just because you like the player. But it also doesn't mean that we just talk recklessly about it. Like, if you're saying Cedric Mullins should be off the team, dude, is Colton Cowser your center fielder? He ain't hitting either. And can't throw. And doesn't cover the ground that Cedric Mullins. Is Ryan McKenna your center fielder? He's been more of an offensive help than he's been a defensive help.
The Mateo and McKenna
He did get a good
3-up guys.
100. Well, no.
I mean, with the 6 in 1 week, never.
Right. Mateo, I could still make an argument for him. McKenna, because the defense. I know, he was in good position for the one ball yesterday, but, it is still an adventure, man, with Ryan McKenna. I know the metrics all say what they say, but,
I mean, anytime. Yeah, I know I said it last week. Anytime Mullins is not in center field,
Well, the ball yesterday in the ninth inning, I think I saw Jacob Calvin-Meyer tweet out, had a expected batting average of 0.40.
Well,
yuck.
Maybe that's enough to put him on the down 3.
No, it's not, because he hit a couple of home runs.
I have Mike Baumann as my number.
And a lot of people put Baumann on the list. It's fine. To me, it was just so insignificant in the story of the week that I couldn't put Baumann.
I mean, it was bad. Yesterday.
I get it. I'm not arguing with that, and I think here's what I really think this is. I think it's difficult for us to criticize players we like, and it's easier to do it for guys that we don't really feel like are Orioles, right? And Mike Baumann, I think we're at the point. I like Mike, good guy, battled, found a role for himself a year ago, but I think we're kind of all at the same place, which is the next time the Orioles need to make a roster move pitching wise, it seems like Mike Baumann can be the guy to go.
You think Dylan Tate? There seems to be not room for Cole Irvin at this point. I mean, well, maybe if he keeps pitching like this, there will be, but Albert Suarez obviously is going to be in the bullpen now, and yeah, it just feels like Mike Baumann.
No, and Tyler Wells will be back at some point. Grayson will be back at some point. Yes, I get it. Unfortunately, more injuries might happen, but to your point, I would have no problem if today they said Dylan Tate's back and Mike Baumann's gone.
I guess probably today they can't, but.
Oh, it's not. It's still not. Yeah, it's not been because it was last. I guess it was last Monday, right? Yeah. So it's not. It's not been time. So yes, you're right. It couldn't be today, but at whatever point it was, I would have no problem with that. But if it's not, it's just a matter of time. It feels like, and so I think it makes it easier for us to be critical of Mike Baumann because we're just kind of at a point where he doesn't feel like he's really part of it anymore. But looking at the totality of the week, Mike Baumann was such a small part of the week that I can't measure him against Colton Cowser and Cedric Mullins, who are a much more significant part of the team. That's the ironic part about that, of course, being the guy that's number 1 on the list was barely a part of the week, too. But it's just the bigger picture thing, and part of the story was his inavailability for a few days. And, yes, Craig Kimbrell is number 1 on my list, and it's tough because we do recognize he was great on Friday. He was great on Friday. But it's a bigger picture problem. It's the problem of if you can't be used back-to-back, as I said earlier, when you only pitch 16 pitches at that point, if you can't be called upon in those spots, I don't know what your role is. And it shouldn't be as closer. I'll let Jeremy chime in on this in a second. I think you can be a leverage arm. I think you can be helpful in places, but not in that role. And I'm saying it on the record, I'm out today. Today is the day that I would make the move. I guess not today, they're not playing a baseball game today. But if they needed a closer tomorrow, Yennier Cano to me would be, I would line it up. Craig Kimbrell can come in the 8th inning. Yennier Cano would be my guy to be the closer. And that's not me saying that Craig Kimbrell can't close games the rest of the year. I think they might need him at certain points. But I'm officially out. This is the date. I marked it. May 5th was the date that I said, I'm done. I'm done. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And
bad Cinco de Mayo for Craig.
Yeah, it's a real. Well, it was the 4th, I guess. It was really. It was
May
the 4th.
Yesterday was the day.
Well, it was the day that I declared it, but May the 4th would be the retroactive. It'd be like the DL thing. It'd be retroactive.
Bad
to
May the 4th too.
Yeah,
2 holidays back to back.
Right. May the 4th. May the 4th was not with him. No question about that. Number 1 for you.
Also,
Craig Kimbrel.
Craig. Yeah, why is it? It is. I don't know why. It's
not
tough.
fair. Not fair. Too many K and R sounds.
Kringle?
Yeah. Kris Kringle. That's Kris Kringle, number 1 on the list.
I don't know if I'd be like if he comes in tomorrow night. And
I'm not going to be angry about it because I expect
like,
that's what's going to happen. But I personally, if I were the manager of the team, I'm saying I would be done. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how much to Jorge Castillo's point, like how much this is a seems like a guy that is very much going to garner a lot of Hall of Fame conversation. And what does it mean? What does it do to him? What does it do to the rest of the bullpen?
It's the same thing that I say about what somebody said. What does it do to Jackson Holiday? These things don't worry me anymore. If that's a problem for you, then you can go, right? And I mean that. If your ego or your attitude is going to be impacted by that, then you got no place here. Craig Kimbrel is not important enough to the Baltimore Orioles for that to matter. He ain't. It's like Jim Thome. He's a mercenary. And that's fine. I appreciate a mercenary. Nelson Cruz was a mercenary. A beloved mercenary. He played here for 1 year, and we treat him like he was a career Oriole. You are not important enough for your opinion to matter. I agree that it was a ballsy thing to go ahead. You can call Jeremy.
Okay.
I agree that it was.
Do you want to update still?
Quickly.
Okay.
Does anybody stand out either way?
I mean, your number 1 is Adley Rutschman. He has 6
Should
points. Dean Kramer has 5. Those are your top 2.
Okay.
And then Corbin and Gunnar both have 3.
All right.
Dean and Corbin both have 5. They're my top 2. And then Adley has 4 for me. Westbrook and Gunnar have 3.
Okay.
And then -5 on Cedric Mullins is your worst.
Yeah, it sucks, man. I love Cedric Mullins.
Kimbrel's -4 on yours as well. Yeah. Holiday -3. A couple other guys -3 up. Kimbrel's my -4. He's my worst.
Okay.
And then I have a bunch of -3s as well.
Yeah. This is the reality. You being sad or sulking or being you aren't important enough. I would have some concern for that with Adley or with Gunnar. I know somebody would say, but I didn't even have that feeling with Jackson Holiday. Like the team, what matters to the team is what matters. So I don't care if it bothers Craig Kimbrel. If he's pissed off, he can go be pissed off somewhere else. And I know that's not going to happen because he's getting paid an awful lot of money. But, they're trying to win a World Series. There's not time for that. There's not time for how it impacts someone emotionally. I got no second thoughts about it. I got to figure out if somebody else can be this team's closer moving forward. By the way, the print issue of Press Box is still available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms and at the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box. Read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. Great cover story from Luke Jackson all about Grayson Rodriguez. Go pick that up today. Let's talk more about this with our buddy Jeremy Conn. I know, how dare I try to talk sports with Jeremy Conn. What a stupid thing to do. Why would I waste my time that way? Big Bad Morning Show, 105.7 The Fan. What's going on, brother? How are you?
What's up, man? Doing well.
I'm done. I'm calling it today. And it's not to say Craig Kimbrel has sucked would be incorrect. He's for the most part, he's looked good. But I do not have faith that Craig Kimbrel can be the workhorse that's needed to be a closer for a World Series competitive team. I just don't think he's at that point in his career any longer. And so before you get to July and before you have to think about whether you need to pay an extraordinary price in order to find that guy, I'd like to give Yennier Cano the opportunity to see if he might not be able to be that guy. And if I were Brandon Hyde, what happened on Saturday to me is the moment, and I want to give Yennier Cano the opportunity to prove that he's that guy moving forward.
Well, here's what I said about it earlier today is that I feel like if you want to talk about the bats, they lead to all of baseball in home run.
Yep.
You want to talk about ERA, starting pitching, they're probably a little higher, but as a team, they're in the top 5. They're ready to compete for a World Series, and it feels weird to say that, but they are. I mean, this is a legitimate World Series contender we're talking about. And then the one caveat is I don't trust the back end. Whereas I was saying today, I said I miss the days of Bob, Britton, O'Day, and Brock.
Yep.
I know it was the reverse order, but But like that's the big thing in the postseason when you can shorten the game and you take 3 innings off, saying, "Hey, no way in hell Andrew Miller's giving up a run." And you saw what happened with the big battle between Aroldis Chapman and Andrew Miller. They got used so much that when they were finally brought in for a Game 7, they both gave up runs. So, yeah, man, it's such an important thing. And then they always get so much of the blame. Is there more you could do in a game to score a run? Sure, but it's the last thing, and that's what makes baseball special. You got to get 27 outs. And for whatever reason, the last 3 seem the hardest to get.
I am, it's funny, too, because it's not me saying I don't think that Craig Kimbrell can't be a valuable piece for you. Like, I think he can get you, and we talked about this a lot last year. You need multiple closers. You need so many leverage arms in the postseason because you're going to pull your starter in the 4th inning of a game if you think that spot is where the game is at stake. So I still think that he can have value. But if you can't, the number of people that were criticizing Brandon Hyde for putting Kimbrell back out there on Saturday night after he had looked dominant on Friday night and thrown a total of 16 pitches for the week at that point. If you can't be counted on, if that's too much to ask, then I think you have your answer. He's not the closer for a team that, to your point, is trying to win a World Series.
Do you trust him at all, though?
I trust him in doses. I would trust him in spots. Like, to me,
Well, that's what – so Rob said it today. Is he a guy that just can't pitch back-to-back days? And, hell, that's not what you want in your closer. And this is a team that expects to win a hell of a lot more games than they lose, which includes winning streaks, like 3 games in a row this weekend.
Right.
And, I know, like, even if Batista was here, he's not pitching all 3 of those games, but you could have had him in 2, and nobody's pitching. It doesn't matter with the last one because it turned into a blowout. But my point is, like, you actually need – you have your one closer, and then you have a guy, like, when he's not ready, he's like, hey, this is the guy I trust the most to get it done. And that's probably where Yennier Cano is right now, or even Danny Kalum for me. And ideally, I don't think you want a lefty in that spot, but it is what it is.
No, and that's exactly where I am. My thought is I'm willing to give Cano another look. And look, man, I'm not saying Cano can be Felix Bautista because we still have to acknowledge how historic what Felix Bautista did last season was. But if he can be more of that guy, I think that there is this belief that some Orioles fans have, Jeremy, that you can just go get whatever closer you want to get at the deadline. And it doesn't work that way. Yes, there are always arms that can be acquired, but the notion that they're just going to go get Mason Miller because you've heard Mason Miller's name and you think the Athletics, even though they've been performing better than we expected them to, are ultimately going to come back to the pack and it's not. He's got like 6 years of team control.
Yeah, he's under control for the rest of his life.
Correct. Like they're not just giving him up. You could maybe go get Mason Miller, but it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you Samuel Basayo, and it might cost you another huge piece in order to go do that because that's how valuable Mason Miller is as a trade chip. And the Orioles, I don't know if they want to pay that much for a reliever. So I just feel like it would behoove them to try to get an answer on one of these other guys. And look, if it's not Yennier Cano, maybe I have the same conversation about Tyler Wells in a month or so and say, hey, give him an extended look to see if you might feel confident. I just feel like it would behoove them to try to get that answer in the coming weeks to see if maybe instead of having to go to the top of the closer market, what they really need to acquire is just more, helpful arms at the deadline at a reasonable price.
Yeah, and like with Tyler Wells too, like I'm all for giving him an opportunity, but his one downfall was that he gives up the long ball.
That's fair.
A little bit much, and I think that's the one thing you don't want in a closer role. Does it mean he would do that in that role? No, but if you look at his track record, he has given up the long ball. But ultimately, I think when you look at this team, we were all talking about trading for a starter. I don't know that anybody has a better starting rotation in baseball right now, statistically. Cleveland, Boston's been great so far, but I'm not putting them up against what we have here. And like, I don't know, it's been kind of strange to see how things have went with the starters. So I do think they have arguably the best rotation. This lineup is only going to get better, especially when some of the young guys are ready. And then I think the only thing you're looking to trade for is bullpen help. Realistically, the cool thing is you have a lot of, and I'm not even saying one guy, like I'd be fine going out and getting 2 guys, man, but I know that's not how baseball works.
Right.
Where we were all screaming about, you got to trade this, you got to get a starting pitcher, and then now you just got 2 guys back that were arguably your best pitchers the past couple of years.
No doubt. Look, I'm still would be willing to consider a right-handed bat. Like, and maybe that's internal, right?
I am too. but I think that's Mayo.
Right. It might very well be
I don't know
that's the
where he fits
answer.
in.
Yeah. It might very well be that ultimately Mayo's the right-handed bat that you're looking for, but I still don't know that I'm ruling out the possibility of one more right-handed bat before this is all said and done. But, yeah, in general, I'm completely with you. It looks like a World Series winning team with one deficiency that I worry if it doesn't change could be their undoing. But, yes, there's plenty of time for that to change between now and then.
and I'd be really upset if Mayo got called up and he was more like Miracle Whip. Does that work or no?
Thank you.
No. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, anyway.
All right,
The only
so
Mayo I like.
it was late last night. Did you get to watch the roast?
I did. I'm going to watch it today. I saw a lot of the clips.
Okay.
There was one thing that really pissed me off, and I'm a big roast fan, and going back to Rickles and Dean Martin and all the guys that were up there, I hated when Tom Brady went up to
Jeff Ross. Yeah,
that was. Don't do that bleep again.
That was
and
lame.
Let me just say what. So there's two things here, and either way, I hate both of them. Either he went to everybody and said, "Look, only one thing's off limits. It's Robert Kraft. Please don't say anything about him. I told him nobody would say anything if he came. I really wanted him here." Then I understand it a little bit more. But it's a roast. Pete Davidson was at a roast, and Pete Davidson's dad was a firefighter who died in 9/11. And Jimmy Carr had one of the most gut-wrenching, well-timed jokes you'd ever hear in your life. But again, I'm one of those guys that thinks you can find funny in anything. It was a unbelievably well-written joke that Pete Davidson laughed at, but I'm pretty sure it cut him to the core. That's what a roast is. And talking about a rich guy who, for lack of a better term, got off from getting off, screw that. It really pissed me off. And I want to see it because of all the other stuff and seeing Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer there. I want to see how some of the people in the crowd were getting roasted and booed. The one thing I heard is it's a little bit too long, but it was live. They did it live, unlike the other roasts that aren't live.
So there are a few things that jumped out to me because I did not watch it live. I only turned it on because everybody was raving about it, right, on Twitter. And so then I wish maybe if I had watched it live, I wouldn't feel the same way. It almost got too overhyped, and that what you pointed out absolutely left a bad taste in my mouth. It really did. That left a bad taste in my mouth, Tom Brady going up to Jeff Ross, because Jeff Ross is such an artist and he's so good at what he did. And, hey, man, unlike some of these other things that we're joking about where, nobody had a choice involved, Robert Kraft had a choice in that. He's got to live with it. He did that, dude.
Own it.
You got to own that you did that. And I'm sorry that your wife died. I'm sorry that you were whatever. But, you did what you did, man. That's the way that it goes. We're making jokes about everybody else. We're agreeing for one night that everybody's allowed to make jokes about people being Jewish or people being whatever. They didn't have a choice in that. You had a choice in what you did.
Yeah, even Tom Brady made a joke about Bill Belichick coming out of that house on the Ring doorbell with his shirt off. You can I just feel like if you're coming to a roast, everything is it's free reign. You can do and say whatever you want,
that's
and that's
the
the thing about being there.
It's supposed to be.
You get to just destroy everybody up there, and Nikki Glaser was amazing, but you get to destroy everybody up there, and then you got to take it back. So. When they return the favor. So I don't know, man. It just really pissed me off.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Also, Randy Moss sucked, man. That was a bummer.
I didn't see that.
It was painfully unfunny. You just kept waiting.
Fast forward through it.
You're bro, what did everybody else get a writer and you nobody found out you were coming to the last minute, so you had to try to write your own material? It was.
That's the other part that people were I saw some people go, I could have done without the comedians and just had I'm like, what are you guys talking about?
No.
Do you realize that for most of those guys, the comedians wrote their jokes?
Correct. So, that's
it
certainly wasn't Julian Edelman writing his own material. Although, I don't know, some of the times it definitely felt like Gronk, and I think he referenced that. The Gronk was like, that one was mine. I'm like, yeah, we could tell. We could tell. That one we didn't need you to tell.
Did you know
us.
you could bet on it, too? You could bet on Tom Brady's roast?
No.
You could bet on whether or not Peyton Manning would be there. And by the way, Tom Brady had an awesome joke about that.
Yeah.
If you didn't hear it, he goes, a lot of times you live in Denver, you live in New Orleans, but for the rest of your life, you're going to live in my shadow. Yeah, great joke, great line.
One. That's a good one.
But yeah, so like I said, I love roast and seeing it, so I can't wait to watch it. But there's going to be some disappointment when I see some of the guys.
Yeah. Randy Moss offered nothing. By the way, and the most bizarre, they had all these Patriots teammates to Tom Brady's right, and then for whatever reason they felt like they needed to have some Buccaneers teammates to his left. And I do think that he was actually close with Ryan Jensen, so Ryan Jensen makes sense for some reason, Brashad Perriman is there. And you're just like, what? What in the world?
They had to get a bunch of first-round picks in there.
Was nobody else available? Like, did they call how deep on the list did it have to get to for you to be like, maybe Perriman can make it out? How many people did he have to introduce himself to?
Well, even last night, too, when you start looking at all the guys that are on the dais or whatever, they're supposed to speak, and you're wondering which ones are going to. Like, don't you remember I forget whose roast was it that, what's the old blonde bird that, Political. She does, God, why can't I think of her name? Ann Coulter.
Yeah.
When they call, like, Pete Davidson said, if you're here, where's somebody's scarecrow at?
Right.
You know, like, so, and she had the worst.
Oh, it
her
was
jokes
terrible.
were just
Terrible.
bad. And it was
terrible.
like you could have heard a church mouse fart in there. It was
like,
so, like, nobody clapped.
Why was this ever a thing? Like, what was the thought process here? And I
but
feel
the reason having her there was so everybody else could make fun of her, though.
That is true. That did help. And I feel like that was part of the thought process for Kim Kardashian being part of this last night. But I'll tell you, she actually was not that. Her delivery wasn't great. But the jokes that were written for her were pretty good. They were pretty good. So,
did you watch Baby Reindeer?
I did. Oh, my God. 100% I watched.
Did you like it?
Start to finish. Well, that's an interesting way of phrasing the question, Jeremy.
Okay. What was more cringeworthy, Randy Moss last night or that guy on stage in episode 7?
Oh, my God. So, to say I enjoyed it would be the wrong way of saying it, right? Because it's not a show you enjoy.
Well, then I'm weird.
No, it's like a show that you watch because you're fascinated by it, but you're not having fun. It's not a fun... Like, I watched The Gentleman and had the time of my life. It's my favorite thing that I've watched all year. It's maybe my favorite thing that I've watched in the last 5 years. I could not...
my wife and I are midway through that.
Dude, it is just a romp. I need more seasons of The Gentleman immediately.
Guy Ritchie's brilliant.
But Guy Ritchie's the best. And it reminds you of how much joy you had the first time that you watched Snatch, the first time that you watched Lock, Stock. You're like, it's just fun. Everything
I remember the first time I saw Snatch.
Yeah, I remember it too, but how is your grandmother doing?
She's dead.
Oh, that's sad. That's sad. Well,
is that a segue?
Well.
Oh, man.
She sent so
That's
many boys
awful.
off to war. Anyway, so Baby Reindeer, it's not fun. It's not enjoyable. It's so compelling you can't stop watching it. And
I loved how just off-putting it was the entire time. Like like even yelling at him, like, why did you answer it that way? Just like be an ass and tell her to leave and be as mean as you can to get rid.
And I know you and I are similar in this way. We are both very empathetic people, right?
Yes.
And I absolutely have those moments where somebody in my life will say, why can't you just tell this person no? Like, why can't you just say you're not doing that? I know you and the number of things you do that nobody knows about, and you don't like saying no. I asked Jeremy.
That's because you go to the same rest stops I go to. So.
Why would you say no? Here's a true story. I asked Jeremy to do something like 5 minutes before the event was happening recently. And Jeremy spent 4 days trying to apologize to me about the fact that he couldn't do it because he's such an empath. And I understand it because I'm the same way. Like, I get it. Anyone asks me to do something, I desperately want to be able to say yes. So that part of it was, to me, as many fascinating parts about Baby Reindeer, the most fascinating part was the story of the dangers of being an empath. That, like, you at some point you have to be able to say no, or you have to be able to stop, or you have to be able to put someone out of your life. And a lot of us are very bad at those things, which doesn't mean that there are going to be things that happen to us that happen to the. And Richard Gadd, is that his name?
Yes.
And most of this is based on a true story. But dude, like, I felt, and I think that was it felt heavy in every moment, and you knew what was coming almost at every point. Like, the moment she walks into that bar, you're like, oh yeah, there's a problem here. Like,
I even said to my wife, I bet this is being recorded, like when, and I'm going, oh God, look how bad everything gets. But I'm trying not to ruin anything, but the
Right.
line, I look forward to winning this competition when it was placed, was I laughed so uncontrollably hard at that moment, and I hope
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Just because it was so uncomfortably awkward.
Oh, my God, it was uncomfortable. Oh, my God, it was uncomfortable.
And by the way, I'm focused on that part of it, and it's about stalking, sexual assault, and actually
Grooming.
falling in love with a transgender woman, which was another interesting side note to this story.
It was a fascinating part of all of this, right? Like, and dealing with your own doubts about who you are, the stuff with his parents. Jesus, man, like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of a perfect segue because usually around this time you ask me what we're going to be talking about.
Right. That's
tomorrow.
You're going to open up about.
Well, no, not like that. But I am going to talk about something that I haven't even told you yet. But I can't tell you what it is. It's tomorrow, and I'm not using this as a radio tool. I just don't.
Okay.
There's a lot of people I care about that I haven't said this to.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to find out tomorrow. But in our 7:00 hour, we're going to get into some real deep stuff and just talk to you why mental health is so important. So I'm going to embarrass the hell out of myself, and not in a funny way, tomorrow.
Well, considering some of the things you've opened up about, man, I can't even imagine what there could be.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate it. And this is Mental Health Month, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I particularly appreciate that, man.
But I'm not doing it because of that. I'm doing it because it's Pacific Islander month.
Well, that part
It's
matters.
like
too.
7 different months in one, I think, this month, or maybe that's next month. But, it's just, this is something that I feel like if I can help one person, I'm always going to, even if it embarrasses me, I'm always going to talk about things. And it's just something that I feel is really important. I've got 2 more people that are really close to me left to talk to. And then it's happened weeks ago, and it's just, like I said, it's embarrassing. Some people may be able to figure things out, but I'm going to open up and talk about it tomorrow.
I appreciate that, man. On a much, much lighter note, I'll wrap with, I told you a week ago that I was coming around and that I believe Minnesota was at least 50-50 with Denver. I am of the belief that, like, this is the NBA Finals. Like, I really am of that belief that, like, the team that wins this series, and I know that's being probably too dismissive of the other 2 teams in the West and maybe Boston, but I truly am of the belief that, like, this is the NBA Finals that we're watching this week, and what an effing statement that was. And we had Tom Crean on the show yesterday, of course, had Anthony Edwards at Georgia, and I'm starting to get to the point where, like, as infuriated as I always get when we do the, next MJ thing, like, my God, man, like, I cannot deny the level of special that we're seeing from Anthony Edwards.
Well, we were talking about it, like, you get wow moments on the offensive end every night.
Yeah.
But you also get wow moments on the other. He's hit his head on the rim twice. He's 6'4". He's hit his head on the rim twice, blocking shots.
He can fly.
Yeah. And he's just a special player, and I agree with you. So here's the weird thing. Boston's going to be in the championship. I don't think any of the teams in the Eastern Conference can touch them. And I told Ed after the Knicks made that trade for OG Anunoby, I said they're the wild card to make the run. And then, of course, they lose Julius Randle, so I kind of wrote them off. This is going to be a fun series. I love the Knicks tonight. I don't mind telling. I love the Knicks, and I do love the Nuggets. They're both favored by 5.5 this evening, and it's a really good spot for the Knicks. That old rivalry and that whole thing. It's a really good spot for them to come out and make a statement against a Pacers team that plays a unique style. But this is, you're right. I'm a Mavs fan, and I think the Mavs are gonna knock off the Thunder and meet up with whoever. I really want to see, and I've said they've been a wild card and could make the run. Speaking of the Mavericks, but you're right. I think this is the series that everybody should have their eyes on, because even this first game just went back and forth, defensive plays, great shots, transition. Jokic loves going up against Gobert. There was one point where Gobert was screaming in the regular season, I got him. And Jokic turned around and said, I got 47, bro. You don't have me. So, he loves playing against Gobert, but let's be honest, Jokic eats everybody's lunch. He's going to have a triple-double almost every single night. So I think let him get his and stop the others, and that's the way to do it.
All right. Tune in tomorrow morning during the 7 a.m. hour. I appreciate the fact that you are so open about so many things, and I will look forward to what it is that you're going to share with us tomorrow. At JCon Sports, and is there anything else that I can plug for you?
No, man, I'm just same old thing. I'm doing my Telegram stuff. I'm pushing that. I'm still in a legal battle with my former business partner, and I don't know which way I'm going to go. Like the way I can explain it to people is it's a sinking ship after I left or after he locked me out, but it's my sinking ship.
Right.
So
right.
How much money do I want to spend to get that back? I'm not going to spend $10,000 to get $5,000 back, so it's just, I got to weigh that and figure things out on my end with the website, but we'll be launching that. And right now, Green Turtle's taking a break. You'll probably still see me down there a couple times, but they're pulling back some advertising while they figure something out during baseball season and get ready for football.
All right. Jeremy, always love you, brother. Appreciate you. We'll talk again next Monday, all right?
Thanks, man. I'll see you.
Jeremy Conn with us as he is every Monday here on GCR. All right. When we come back in, we'll get a tidbit. We'll get tubular. We'll wind things down for a Monday edition of GCR.
Hey Birdland, head to the ballpark on Friday, May 10th for a night of baseball action as the Orioles take on the Arizona Diamondbacks at 7:05. Be sure to come out early. The first 20,000 fans 15 and over receive a Mr. Splash bobblehead. Don't miss the opportunity for this one-of-a-kind giveaway, complete with Mr. Splash's signature floppy hat, goggles, snorkel, and flamingo floaty. No one celebrates extra base hits like the Orioles Chief Hydration Officer. Buy your tickets today at Orioles.com/tickets.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor, dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
Oh, honey, we better stop for gas soon. Let's pull into that Royal Farms.
Ugh, gas is so expensive.
Nope, it'll be cheaper than you think.
Why's that?
I signed up for ROFO Pay on the Royal Farms app. Now we save 15 cents per gallon at all Royal Farms.
Wow, that'll save us a ton of money. I love you more every day.
Well, then, don't get a speeding ticket this trip, okay?
Sign up for ROFO Rewards and upgrade to ROFO Pay and save 15 cents a gallon on gas for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Craving that classic New York deli experience? Look no further than the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. Corned beef piled high, hand-rolled bagels, and something different. A bar! Atman's has food and drink specials every day. Now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at the bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find us at Harbor Point or visit atmansdeli.com.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis. AJMichaels.com.
Hungry? With 7 locations throughout Maryland, Glory Days Grill is always right around the corner. They have wings, burgers, salads, sandwiches, and drinks to satisfy everyone, as well as tons of televisions and sound delivered right to your phone. Glory Days is the best place to watch football or whatever your favorite sport is. While you're there, be sure to check out Goose Flights Lager, named in honor of legendary Raven Tony Goose Siragusa. $2 of every can is donated to the Goose Flights Foundation. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, winding down for a Monday edition of the program. Orioles off tonight before they open up their 2-game series against the Nationals. And great news, everyone. Great news. You asked for it, and they delivered.
What?
For some effing reason, they're going to wear the City Connect uniforms. Both teams tomorrow. Wow!
Tigers just dropped their City Connects.
Oh, good for them. Do they look?
No,
look?
they don't.
Oh. Look, man.
I thought the Rays might. The Rays weren't really.
Here's my issue.
Really
It's one thing that the Orioles are bad when they wear the City Connect uniforms, so like you should be wearing them less, not more. Although maybe they think the team is like, here's how you can change. We tried changing the pants. Now we'll try to change the fortunes by wearing them on the road, and let's see what happens. This is a forced thing that Major League Baseball is doing. And I don't know if it's something they're going to do like for Yankees Mets, if they're going to do it for LA. Like, they're obsessed with the idea of trying to make this one market. They're obsessed with it. And they're not the first. A lot of people have been obsessed over the years with the idea of trying to make Baltimore and Washington the same market. And
it's the airport's fault, really.
Is that what it is? It's the airport's fault?
Washington.
There are, for a hand, and as I've said a million times, uniquely related to baseball, there are a handful of people in D.C. that do feel this way, that grew up rooting for the Orioles, and so the Orioles still matter to them, but then a new team arrived, and they were like, well, that's my team. For a handful of people in D.C., this is a thing. So if you're going to do it, obviously you would do it in D.C. In Baltimore, everybody would say, what the F? Like, what is this? But no matter how much you try to force this being a thing, you can't do it. It's not the thing that everyone outside of this area wants it to be. It's like trying to force this as being a Capitals market or a Wizards market. There is a pocket of people. There are probably more Capitals fans than there are fans of other teams, but it's actually a lot closer if you took the entire metro region. Like, I've said this a million times, Capitals fans don't understand this. There's a lot of Capitals fans in Anne Arundel County because it's between Baltimore and D.C. There are a lot less in Harford and Cecil counties where there are a lot more Flyers fans. So I don't even know that, like, definitively it would be, if you took the entire region, that it would be majority or even plurality is the better way of saying it, because it wouldn't be majority, but plurality Capitals fans. I think it would be. We used to do a lot of this research, not only at this company, but the previous company that I was at, because we were desperate to find new ways to make money, right? Like, we were desperate. Hey, if we did more coverage of this, would there be interest? Could we quantify it? And time and time and time and time and time again. And it was interesting because at the time I worked with some people, like at the old company, everybody knows Drew is a Capitals fan, but the guy that was running the company was also a Capitals fan and, like, wanted this to be able to be backed up. And every time we did data mining, every time we dove into it, they would get so frustrated. I can't believe this many more people care about Maryland football than care about the Capitol. I'm like, what? What do you not understand about that? One of them is called Maryland. The other is called Washington. How is this hard? Why do you not get this?
There's no Maryland team.
If there were, and if they, like I've said this a million times, if a team played in Columbia that was called the Maryland Capitals, they'd be wildly popular. They're not. It's not hard to understand why people in another market don't associate with a different market. It's not hard. And it's not, again, I'm not doing the war. I don't, if you are, you are. Be a fan of whatever you want to be a fan of, but you can't make fact what you want it to be. We have done the data mining. We have done extensive research. And we can't justify any coverage of DC teams. Because overwhelmingly, It's no matter how hard everyone from the outside tries, it is two different markets with two different interests. And in sports, the only thing that has much crossover is the University of Maryland. It's still limited, right? Like, we couldn't do a year-long University of Maryland thing, but, like, it's the only thing that has crossover in both markets. It's just the way that it works, and everybody's tried to, like, we all have attempted because everybody wants to find other ways to make money. When the Orioles were bad, do you know how desperately we wanted it to be that covering the Capitals could be a moneymaker? It could not. Trust me, the attempts were made. It's just a reminder to everybody. Everybody from the outside says, well, those cities are very close to each other, so it's kind of like one market. You point out they've got an airport. It's always been comical, right? Like, the airport is literally right outside of Baltimore, and yet we call it BWI, which kind of always pissed me off, if I'm being honest with you. Like,
if they changed the name of the airport, what would it be? The Baltimore, just the BI?
Whatever it would be. The Maryland International Airport. MIA, missing an intersection. Whatever. I don't care. Be good. But the moral of it being, this is what happens. And Major League Baseball says, well, this has got to be a thing. Let's try to make it a thing. And everyone here says, snooze. Sorry, dude. The only reason I would care more about the only way that playing the Nationals is more interesting than anything else.
It's the World Series.
Or it would be if you were going to the game, right? You said, it's not that far away. I got nothing. When you're a young person, there's way more of that.
Yeah.
Right? When you're young.
I haven't been to Nats Park for definitely since
COVID, you're not missing anything there. It is about as devoid of personality as a ballpark can get. Like, there is just not much there. But, like, that's the only way that it becomes interesting is you say to yourself, it's not that far away. I could maybe make the trip. But it's the same thing I say about Philadelphia. Like, if you're not going to every Orioles game, the notion that you're because ticket prices are cheap? Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Let's see. What am I doing tomorrow?
I get it. I understand.
It's not going to rain, right?
I don't know. Maybe. It's been raining a lot recently.
I know.
I thought we were getting the flowers. Thought it was flower time.
Well, that's why they're wearing their uniform.
The cherry blossom
uniform. So
they just desperately want this to be a thing that they can't make. Again, outside of a handful of people in D.C. who are still Orioles fans. What?
A little bit of rain tomorrow. I don't think it'll stop the game, but, to go to D.C.
Right, and sit out in that. Yeah.
Although tickets are really cheap.
They are cheap. They are cheap. The moral is you just can't make this thing, but they're just gonna keep effing that pony, man. Like, they're just gonna keep right after. I don't know why it's effing that chicken. I don't know why I said effing that pony. Yeah. That was a real. I blame the allergy meds. They're gonna keep effing that chicken, and they're not gonna get They're not gonna get out of it what they want to get out of it because they just can't force something. It's just that no matter how many times you do this, out of town people will never understand it. You can't get them to understand it. You can't. They insist upon. Well, isn't it one big region? No. You want it to be that because it's easier to market. Like, you see it all the time in little ways, right? Like, food companies that try to market like mumbo sauce in Baltimore. They're like, well, they like it in D.C. It's probably a thing in Baltimore too, right? Like, no. It's not bad.
What is mumbo sauce?
It's a very popular, like, sauce, wing flavor that exists in D.C. And it's fine. I enjoy it, but it ain't part of our culture. We don't care. Nobody's saying, the pizza place is making a mumbo sauce pizza. Gotta get that. We don't care. It doesn't mean anything to us. And I don't know how they feel in D.C. Like, every time you put out Old Bay anything in Baltimore, I'll give them the free plug. You put out anything related to Old Bay, we are racing to the store. Goldfish, hot sauce. We'll do all of it. Whatever it is, we're racing to the store to get it. I don't know if in D.C. they do that. I don't know that they care because it's a different market. It's different. We've been through this too many times for people to still struggle with it. You want to do City Connect uniform night? God bless you. I mean, I hate it, obviously. I hate it. I hope that somehow wearing them on the road will,
I know, yeah. That'll reverse the hex.
We'll reverse this. Like, get it out of away. At least it's away from Camden Yards. But it's a reminder they're going to wear the stupid things again on Friday.
going to ruin Mr. Splash Bobblehead night.
No, the sanctity of Mr. Splash Bobble. And I just saw that David Rubenstein is going to be Mr. Splash on Friday night. Yes.
Wow.
Which I like that. I like that part of it. I just don't like the stupid uniforms. God, I hate that part. Are you trying to get your tickets now?
I already have my tickets for Friday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Don't worry.
You can't miss
Don't
Mr.
worry.
Splash.
No,
I almost got there with. We were doing I'm tired last week. I almost said I'm tired of Mr. Splash. Like I'm right on the borderline with it.
Well,
I'm right on the borderline with Mr. Splash.
You gotta relax.
Like
You gotta relax. Take a deep breath.
I'm still fine with the section. It's never gonna be for me, but I'm like right on the borderline of them trying to make Mr. Splash. Like we have a mascot here. That's our mascot. It's fine. It's just not. I'm over it. I got to be honest with you. I'm largely over Mr.
And maybe
Splash.
I got to credit, Jim Palmer. He did a great push on the Mr. Splash bobblehead over the last week or so.
Okay, so
I'm like, you know what? Yeah, this is I think I need to be a part of this.
Hey, look, man, it's working. We just ran a commercial for it a couple of seconds ago. It's effective advertising.
I mean, it was the commercial that made me.
Thank you. Yes.
that
Until
was-
then, we sold a ticket. That's what we did. I think you should go to Mr. Splash Bobblehead Night, but I would be more inclined to go if they didn't wear the stupid uniforms.
Yeah.
They'll wear them tomorrow night. Let's get a tidbit.
Speaking of the uniform, Ryan McKenna
What?
was struggling with the new uniforms in the road gray.
I
He
didn't
was
see.
sweating a lot yesterday.
Ooh.
He was sweating a lot. Not quite as bad as Carlos Rodon in the
Okay.
first inning.
Yeah, that was rough.
But yeah, Ryan McKenna probably not a fan of these new ones.
They're gonna fix them next year. That was
Thank goodness.
the weirdest part about it. They're like, Nike's announced they're gonna work on fixing the uniforms. Great, next year. Why wait? I don't get it. Tidbit brought to you by Atman's Deli Harbor Point. AtmansDeli.com to see their daily specials. It's everything you loved about the original Atman's, but now they also have a full bar at the brand new Atman's Deli in Harbor Point. What you got?
All right, so Ohtani, the Dodgers swept the Braves this weekend. If you didn't know, and Ohtani was, he was Shohei Ohtani. 8 hits, 6 RBI, 5 runs, 3 homers, 2 stolen bases, and the Opta stats went through, and they found that he was only the 5th player to ever do this in a single series. Have those exact numbers: 8 hits, 6 RBI or more. 8 hits, 6 RBI, 5 runs, 3 homers, 2 stolen bases. 5th player ever to have this in one series against a single team. Any idea who the other 5? Last one to do it was 2010. He was a Cleveland, or no, was he Cleveland? I think he was Cleveland.
2010?
Yeah.
Hi. That's sort of right in between the.
Yeah, he was with Cleveland in 2010.
2010 in Cleveland. Man.
Just a guy that kind of, would do it all.
Right. No, is Drupal Cabrera?
No, not Asdrubal Cabrera.
Jason Kipnis?
Not Jason Kipnis. You're getting warmer.
2010.
He is South
Shin-Soo Choo?
Shin-Soo Choo.
Okay.
Yes.
All
Ohtani, Shin-Soo Choo, and then in 1990.
Oh, for God's
All right,
sakes.
just give it to you.
1990.
Just filling up every single stat in 1990.
I get it. Roberto Alomar.
Not Roberto.
He was someone that filled up a lot of stats, though. Like, 90?
Yes.
Barry Bonds?
Barry Bonds.
Okay.
Yes, Barry Bonds. In 87, Andre
God,
Dawson.
okay.
And then in 1922, this one you should know.
Oh, right, 1922. Mel Ott. Tris Speaker.
George Sisler.
Oh, I do love George Sisler.
So, yeah, Ohtani is he's Ohtani. Paolo Banchero is 21 years old. 175 days old. He is the second youngest player in NBA history to have 35 and 15 in a playoff game. He is only older than what player to have 35 points, 15 rebounds in a playoff game?
Garnett?
Not Garnett. This guy was 20 years old when he did it in May of 1980.
Moses Malone.
Not Moses Malone.
Guys didn't typically come into the league at that age in 1980.
Yeah. His name did start with an M.
Started with an M. In 1980. Magic?
Magic Johnson.
Okay.
And so, of course, Paolo
I didn't realize he was
on
that
the Magic.
young. Yeah. Ah, look at that.
And then so there are 9 former MVPs in the NBA this year. And now as we move into the second round, there's only one remaining. Only one of the NBA's.
Jokic.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jokic. So all of their 8 have either missed or they've been eliminated, and never before had there been more than 5 former NBA MVPs failing to make it past the first round in the same season.
Okay.
So pretty crazy.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jokic, Jokic has to come around to finish it, right?
I don't know, man.
And then Jose Altuve, so this is my real tidbit. Jose Altuve became the 5th player. He had got his 300 steal over the weekend. He became the 5th player in Major League Baseball history to reach 2,000 hits, 400 doubles, 200 homers, and 300 stolen bases.
Right, say those numbers one more
All
time.
with a career batting average of 300.
300 with what?
2,000 hits. 400 doubles.
400.
200 homers.
200.
300 steals.
All right, none of those stand out significantly as being that. So, like, I'm looking for hitters, not power hitters.
You're looking for guys that hit for average, really, because there's
steals is where it does become a factor. Because I don't think Tony Gwynn is going to be on this list.
Tony Gwynn is
it's
not
too
on
many
the
steals for Tony Gwynn to have made the list. But I'll say Paul Molitor.
Paul Molitor is on this list.
How many guys are on this list?
There would be 3 remaining. We have
Craig
5 total.
Biggio.
Craig Biggio did not hit 300 in his
really?
career.
That part's surprising.
He hit 280, 281.
Wow. George Brett.
George Brett is not on the list.
Stolen bases.
Yeah, I want to say it's steals. Yeah, that would probably make the most sense.
How about Rod Carew?
No Rod Carew.
Okay.
Yeah, George Brett only stole 200 bases. We let that guy in the Hall of Fame.
How about now it starts to get interesting all of a sudden. How about Robin Yount?
No Robin Yount.
My. How about Ichiro?
No Ichiro.
The power.
Yeah. Wow. Robin Yount missed the stolen bases by 29 steals.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. Actually, he how many home runs? Oh yeah, he hit the home run marker.
How about? Man, this is tough.
One of them.
Jeter.
Jeter is on the list. Derek Jeter. 2 more remaining. One.
I didn't know if Jeter actually finished at 300 or not.
He did. He hit 310 actually.
Okay.
One of them you guessed earlier for.
One of them I guessed in the first.
Yeah. When I asked about who did
I got it. Now I got to remember who all I guessed then, and that's the difficult part. I guessed
because he.
Well, it's not Kipnis and it's not Cabrera.
Yeah, it's not them.
It's not Bonds.
No, not Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds he just missed 298.
Yeah.
Batting average.
It's pretty unbelievable.
So he basically should be on the list.
Yeah, it really should be. Oh my God, who else did I guess? I'm
he does it all.
Oh, Roberto Alomar, right?
Roberto Alomar. And then the 5th one, he's celebrating a birth, or would be celebrating a birthday today.
Well, it's Willie Mays' birthday today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is that it?
Yes, Willie Mays.
I thought Willie Mays was still alive.
Is he still alive?
Pretty sure Willie Mays is still. Pretty sure Willie Mays is still with us.
Willie Mays?
Yeah, Willie Mays is definitely still with us.
Sorry, Willie.
93 years young today.
Don't hold it against me, please.
I think
Happy birthday, Willie.
Can't believe you just killed Willie Mays.
Well, he's he's on this incredible list, so good job.
Mays is definitely with us.
Good job.
The only real power hitter of the group. The only home run hitter. Yeah.
Under Jeter had 260 homers. Yeah. And all the other guys were under 250.
All right.
And then he had 660.
Tidbit was also brought to you by County Sports Zone, countysports.zone, which is proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer, and buyatoyota.com. All the latest as we're in championship season in high school sports can be found at countysports.zone. Now.
There is a place where tradition, family, and community gather, where the aspirations of talented young competitors takes root, and where the crossroads of history, culture, and renewal come together. This spring, experience America's newest and most innovative ballpark, Meritus Park in Hagerstown, Maryland, home of the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Plan your getaway today. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland.
TNT and True TV tonight. Pacers-Knicks game 1 at 7:30. Timberwolves-Nuggets game 2 at 10. Already a pretty freaking important game in that series. If the Nuggets lose, this preview this NBA Finals match. Like, it doesn't look great. ESPN Game 1 for the Bruins and Panthers tonight at 8 o'clock, and then Marlins-Dodgers after that. Tigers-Guardians at 6 on Fox Sports 1, MLB Network, and MLB TV for Rangers-Athletics at 9:30. USA for Crystal Palace and Manchester United at 3, and then WWE Monday Night Raw at 8. Non-sports.
Non-sports-wise, not a whole lot. Master Chef Jr., of course,
yes.
on Fox. Hannah,
we're caught up.
You are?
Mrs. Clark was very unhappy about that. She sat down the other night to watch an episode, and we were like, oh, there must have been some repeats because we are caught up.
Hannah Waddingham is on Fallon. She was at Fall Guy, apparently.
Oh, I was really getting excited for a second.
John Oliver's on Seth Meyers, and those are the highlights. There's not much. All American, of course, on CW.
I can't miss that. All right, thanks today to Kenny McPeek. Thanks to oh gosh, who else do I need to thank today? Sorry, my brain stopped working because Griffin.
Jorge Castillo, of course.
Yes, Jorge Castillo from ESPN. Thanks to Shawn Nadelen from Towson and to Jeremy Conn. We'll get all of it up in the greatest hits section of the
oh my God, it's so good.
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Tomorrow on the program, Carlos Pena from MLB Network is going to join us. He did a whole breakdown last week that I'm looking forward to chatting with him about. Also coming up tomorrow, our regular Tuesday stuff, Patrick Stevens will join us. We will preview the first round of the NCAA Lacrosse Tournament and get caught up on County Sports Zone Radio with Wes Brown. Stuff and things tomorrow as well. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Maryland Live Casino and Hotel, that is, Atman's Deli, A.J. Michaels, Guilford Hall Brewery, the Maryland Jockey Club, Royal Farms, Ed Block Courage Awards, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, Costa Sin, MSAA, Hartford Community College, Glory Days Grill, the Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Visit Hagerstown and Washington County. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Monday evening. Go nobody. Duke sucks.